Haji Muhammad Danish Science and Technology University. Along with her, there comes Miss Saima Zerin Shuma and Noore Afruz Jyoti. They are the students from MSS in Sociology, Haji Muhammad Danish Science and Technology University. We have Miss Marzia Islam from Dhaka University. Also, Mr. Abul Kalam Azad, Manager, Just Energy Transition, ActionAid, Bangladesh. Can I have a big round of applause for the panelist and the moderator? Over to you, Mansi Appa.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you had your lunch well, and it is my duty to keep you awake. And I will do my best that you are awake. So that brings me to the first question, which is linked to the panel today, and that question is to all of you. Whose climate change are we talking about? Whose policies are we talking about? For who are those fundings? Whatever we talked in the morning, who is the actual who which we want to really address upon? Can you tell me? This is a question to the participants who are sitting on the other side than all five of us. Who is that who for which climate change is discussed? Fundings are made. No one? No one? People. Who those people are? I wish to bring you an example. If Corona had happened to all the poor people in this world, had we discussed Corona so seriously as we discussed because it happened to the middle class and the rich people? Do you think it would have happened really like this? Yes and no? Very good. And the classic example is actually water and well-being. Because water epidemics is much more deeper pandemic than Corona was. More than 50% of the world at this moment dies out of water epidemics. We still don't discuss it because the people who are not the ones we are sitting in this hall, and most probably the middle class and the elites. So that is why we have to discuss how resilient those who are, how resilient we are, and what does it mean to be in the development sector, or how inclusive we are, those who are writing for the other who, because they are not writing for themselves. They are neither raising their voice against those who are writing or those who are making policies and funding. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming here, and I hope with these small questions it is going to keep you intriguing for the discussion today. And may I invite our first presentation from Ashrafi and Noore. Is that going to happen together or it's different? Together. Please come. So the rules of the game for this panel, I am very, very particular about time. And I wish to do that because we are running late by half an hour, more than half an hour. So 10 minutes for your presentation, and I will be honest to that 10 minutes. But I'm going to really creep in if you go beyond 10 minutes so that we have good discussion with the participants. Thank you so much. Over to you.
Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon, all. Since I have been requested to present my paper very precisely, so I just tell a story before starting my presentation. When I read some literature, mention that related to reproductive health and salinity related and reproductive health, the literature indicate that males do not go to market to buy their household food or something else for their wife. This question I tried to answer, find out the answer. Why male partner are not interested to purchase food for their wife in the coastal zone, and it's a common problem. But I found the answer comprehensively. Then for that I am interested to conduct this study. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay. Study area. Before. Okay. This is a common scenario from the existing literature. Climate change, increased salinity, threats on reproductive health. And what is the next? Hopefully we'll find the answer. In Shatkhira, Bagherhat, Barguna, Patuakhali, and Bhola in Bangladesh coastal region have been chosen based on the community life. Have been chosen based on the community life. Existing literature and primary observation assisted in identifying the locality. It is these 5 districts were our study area. I followed a qualitative method to find out some questions, because to tell about our reproductive health, especially menstrual, sexual and reproduction, it is very stigmatized issue still now. That's why to find out the answer, I had to follow the a qualitative method. Before lunch, Mr. Hafiz said the habitual practice of having more saline salt in foods or drinking water, but I would like add some more from the social perspective, that since the people, especially the women, feel that this saline problem is unresolved. That's why we have to adapt. We have to adapt with this salinity if we are to survive, and that's why they try to. That's why they try. They most of the time they didn't feel to talk about this issue, and this is called adaptability of salinity. And there is another aspect that since Bangladesh is a Muslim dominating country, and the people in low income prefer to find any solution from the religious perspective, and they said, I quote, "We have no problem, but some people who have accused this water have faced problems. That is called salinity. They just feel stomach ache and itching. Adolescents have no problem, but itching." That means itching due to salinity is not a big problem here, because they try to adapt with this, because this problem is unresolved. The existing menstrual hygiene management in coastal zone by girls and women with salinity is, they basically use 2 pieces of old saris, but it is a matter of thinking while washing clothes, because menstrual clothes are cleaned with salt water, and the cloth becomes rough and stiff after drying. Because of this, when the cloth used again, it creates a sore in the uterus. There is a since there is another problem they faced: itching, irregular due to salinity. Their menstrual health impact, itching, irregular periods, excessive bleeding which cause urination, eczema, allergy, tumor in uterus, urinary tract inflammation, bleeding during urination, vaginal infection, leukorrhea, and menorrhagia are very common problem there. And that's why since they have to fight against salinity, they develop some self-developed mechanism to relieve from their sufferings of menstrual health. Women take pills and injection to stop menstruation, because during menstruation, they have to use more saline water. Every 3 months, they purchase injection from the nearest health complex and pharmacy and insert them in their body for stopping menstruation for 3 months. As a result, many women go through premature menopause. One participant said, quote, I am at 40, I have early menopause because I was taking injection randomly to stop menstruation. So, due to their health hazard in their menstrual health, that that uh, uh, that affects on their sexual health as well, and that's why salinity threats on their sexual. And what is that? Women are disinterested in their intimate partner relationship because urinary tract infection is a common problem. So, what consequences does salinity bring? So, what consequences does salinity bring in their life due to this vulnerability? It is very important. I think this slide is the main slide of my presentation. They face violence, and I would like to say the intensity of violence against women because they are disinterested. Disinterested in their intimate partner relationship. That's why they face the husband beats not only with his hands. Most of the time, women are not well physically. They feel sick, they feel sickness, and that's why they can do their daily activities, household activities on time, and that's why the husband beats not only with his hands but also with his words. Violence occurred for unwillingness to have intercourse. Husband keep sticks beside the bed so that wives get afraid and are willing to have intercourse. Male partner don't try to understand the physical problem. They beat them for their unwillingness. Some want to get married, want to divorce, and want to move to another place. The husband don't want to go to market to purchase the food and clothes for their wives. One participant said her experience, her husband said, since you can lay with me in bed, I want to buy food for cooking. Other violence occurred for unwillingness to have intercourse. One participant said, quote, my husband urinates in bed so that I feel bad in the morning because I have to wash the bed cover. He does it to give me punishment. And same experience they shared, same experience they gathered from their mother-in-law. And the before the presentation, I asked a question: what is the next? I would try to answer the question. Climate change increased salinity that affects on reproductive health in coastal zone, and the impact of it, gender-based violence. Salinity, ultimately salinity creates gender-based violence in coastal zone, and adolescents, girls, and women are the affected. Thanks all.
Thank you so much. It's really deep. Yeah, it's really deep. Thank you so much. Because when we talk about water and gender, especially women, we often get into the zone of talking about access to water, and this is really deep. And maybe I request both of you to come and be here to take questions from people. But we will do all the presentations together and then we will have questions. So please gather your questions, and maybe it's a good idea to even write it down and we can bring it here and then sort it out. So It's really very heart touching to see in a country which is, I think, by population women dominated. But the problem is across the world with women on this. But you raise a very complex issue, how a simple issue like salinity can go so deep into well-being to that extent. And it's also gender issue then, so it's not salinity issue alone. So we will discuss more about it, but for now let me just invite Marzia to give her presentation. And thank you for being on time, and I really appreciate that. And over to you, Marzia.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay.
So by the time she's preparing, I request all of you to keep your questions ready so that we can optimize the Q&A. Thanks.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. And I would like to start my discussion by telling you a real life story. Radharani, a 65-year-old lady, come to me by saying, I would like to have a half a meal in a day for the sake of drinking water. Please do give us some potable water for our household. How can anyone drink water? By measuring. Each week, I fast for 2 days to the god so that I get necessary potable water. Thank you, ActionAid Bangladesh, for hosting this conference on the most pressing issue of this era. The title of my research is Drinking Water Salinity in Southwestern Coast of Bangladesh, Impacts on Women Roles. Indeed, climate change is the most alarming issue compared to any other issue in recent times. In this year, the world already has encountered different types of climate hazards among all kinds of effects. One of the most critical impacts will be on the reduction of the availability of fresh drinking water. Though scientists could not be able to predict the exact time of full-scale scarcity, but it is already quite evident in the coastal region of the world, particularly in Bangladesh. At present, around 300 million people are in a highly threatened situation on the globe, and 10% of the global population lives on the coast. Bangladesh is also gradually becoming a most salinity prone country, specifically in its southern district, because it shares its border with the Bay of Bengal. And the Ganges River basin is intersected with the Bay of Bengal, which mainly works as the way to bring salt water into the mainland. Besides, cyclones, surges, sea level rise, and storms hit the coastal areas on regular basis. On a study found that since 1948, river salinity in the southern district of Bangladesh, particularly Prispur, Potuakhali, which is my home district, Burguna, Satkhira, Bagherhat, and Khulna has risen by 45%. Bangladesh is the fifth most climate endangered country and experiences a severe scarcity of safe drinking water. An estimated 30 million people live in the coast of Bangladesh, and this large population is deprived of access in drinking natural fresh water because of rising salinity. However, the impacts of salinity varies based on gender. Being an internally displaced person, I know the effects of climate change from my own experience. Traditionally, in Bangladesh, women are responsible to attend all the unpaid household sources along with their productive works and the community works. Moreover, women of the impacted region are facing reduction in their employment and income opportunities, health vulnerability, risk of family breakup, migration of the male partner, and so on. In the context of Bangladesh, this paper uniquely identified the impacts of water salinity on women roles. The prime location of data collection of this paper is Khulna district. It is one of the most vulnerable southern district of Bangladesh, and it is 4,394 square kilometers long, and population is 23,18,527, and the male-female ratio is quite equal, 100 male for 99.5 females. All its major rivers, namely Bhairab, Kobatak, Koira, and Rupsha, flow into the Bay of Bengal, which also brings the salt water into the mainland, particularly in the monsoon. On top of that, other types of natural calamities is quite common phenomenon in Khulna. Therefore, according to the IUCN, groundwater in Khulna area has become 40% saltier in the recent times, and only a single source of fresh drinking water is present for every 3 to 5 villages. Therefore, this study aims to seek the answer of the questions that whether drinking water salinity is creating burden on women's triple roles. If so, then how it is creating burden on women roles. The purpose of this study is to identify the difficulties faced by women by taking into account their triple roles in locations with high salinity in drinking water, and draw attention to how women's growing unpaid roles are unnoticed by the society. I have reviewed some empirical studies on salinity impacts on women roles. For example, in Ecuador and in Sudan, women walks nearly 15 to 20 kilometers per day just to collect fresh water. And one report from UNICEF said that women and girls spend almost 200 million hours each day just to collect fresh drinking water for their family. In Bangladesh, severe drinking water crises in coastal areas are increasing the risk of hypertension, heart disease, and renal disease, especially for the children and women. Lack of government policies are also responsible for producing gender disparity in the affected region. Most of these empirical studies focused on the maternal health and health of the children and women in Bangladesh, and from other contexts, they focus on the women roles, but the context is different. Hence, in order to understand the Bangladeshi context, this study contributes to the literature of water salinity's impacts on women roles. To investigate the To investigate the saline intrusion in drinking water and its effects on women's everyday activities, only qualitative data collection techniques had been employed. The data has been collected from Botiaghata, Baniyashanta, Kotka, Dakop upajelas of Khulna district. In-depth interviews and focus group discussions are employed to understand women's perspective and experiences on their everyday lives. I have also conducted some key expert interviews, which includes NGO staff of Adin Foundation, village or community members of the Botiaghata, female primary school teachers, university professors, and family planning representatives of DACOP, respectively, who have been working on the ground to make the condition adaptable for the women. For my data analysis of this study, I have conducted thematic data analysis. To guarantee the participants' confidentiality, ethical considerations has taken into account during the data collection procedure, and the participants of the given picture gave their voluntary consent to use those for my academic purposes. This study is guided by the triple role framework of Caroline Moser, a feminist renowned feminist scholar. Moser gave this framework for gender policy and planning in 1980s. Here she says that in developing countries, a woman's responsibility throughout her life fall into three distinct areas. First, reproductive roles, which encompass childbearing and rearing, caregiving, and domestic responsibilities that are intended to foster household welfare. Productive roles is also described as the activities that aim to generate goods and services that can be sold or consumed. And community management encompass social gathering, collective participation in political affairs, and the management of the communal resources. While men are thought as a primary breadwinners and do not have any well-defined role in reproduction and community management, they are mostly engaged in local political activities rather than community work. This brings major repercussions for women, because the role of women in reproductive and community level are seen as natural and non-productive, and consequently not appreciated. Even policymakers are only focused on the productive roles in the name of bringing empowerment for the women. The aforementioned realities is pertain for the women of Khulna district. The participants of this district identified that all the unpaid tasks, including cooking for the family, giving birth and rearing, look after the elderly, grow vegetables in the kitchen garden, to manage food security, collect fish with their husband in the river, maintaining community relations and resources, and be engaged in income generative activities were already the assigned task on women for generations. On top of that, the rising drinking water scarcity is emerging as the most time consuming unpaid job for women, for which they need to spend 3 to 5 hours each day with several limitations. And our traditional society also considered it as a woman's natural role, hence men disengage themselves from this completely. As a result, water salinity is creating burden on women's roles and affecting their livelihoods in many aspects. The analysis of this data implies that water salinity creates a cycle of unpaid or extra workload on women's lives. In TRF framework, Caroline Moser already identified that women are routinely exploited under patriarchal standards, and society merely accepts this position as normal, unproductive ones for women. Initially, it is perceived that water scarcity is imposing an additional burden on women's life only. However, after closer examination of the situation, it becomes evident that women are merely this rising salinity and its burden is merely a component of a larger interconnected system of responsibilities which is already existing in women's roles and in women's lives. Potable water scarcity impaired the sustainable economic growth, and thereby the poverty is prevalent in this region. The presence of challenging living conditions limited the holistic advancement of the education, particularly in the case of female education. At the elementary level, the literacy rate among the female is 48.67% against 58.65% of male. Currently, there exists a scarcity of opportunity for secondary and post-secondary education. According to a primary school teacher of Rekhamari village in Dakop, Mrs. Pushpa Haldar, she was one of my KII participants, said that the nearest high school is situated at a distance of roughly 4 kilometers, and it has been observed that female students tend to discontinue their pursuit of higher education after completing their primary school. Moreover, female offspring is tend to work as a helping hand of their mother in their house, as it is highly believed notion there the birth of a girl is to go for another house. I can say that মেয়ের জন্ম হয় পরের ঘরে যাওয়ার জন্য. Owing to the fear of various disease for carrying heavy weight for a long time and high poverty ratio, early marriage of girl is very common here. Because urine prolapse, irregular menstruation, infertility, and several kinds of disease become very certain after an age for women. Often, men remarry again by citing that in this incapability of women for doing all these tasks. In this context, women identified that collecting water and devote this mass of time is also creating pressure on their mental health, because in some places women water pumps of which is provided by government and some other NGOs opens for only 2 hours in a day, for which women need to stand up in a line for hours. In Shukdara village of Baniya
Excuse me, I'm just going to interrupt you to really wind it up in a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, please, thank you.
Okay. Okay, in Shukdara village, that pumps open at 2 a.m. and women need to stand there, which is also a prime reproductive, productive hours of any female, who is ultimately cut the earning possibilities of the woman. Consequently, the leisure income ratio of women enhances the power disparity between the gender, which reduces women's power to raise their voice as per their needs. Finally, rising water salinity is creating burden on women triple roles, which is I tried to prove by my presentation. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Thanks. Such a comprehensive presentation. And I think it's good to see that I'm doing this panel where we are talking about inclusion, and women comes out to be a major gender on the receiving end of exclusion. So all the exclusivity we are doing in water sector is making more excluding the women on the other side, because water sector has been mainly predominantly patriarchal. There's only one woman every 5 water professional in the world, and countries like India and Bangladesh, we are even worse than that. But then when we talk about women and water, we go to the vulnerable side of it. If we want to change that, we have to have more women professionals so that they can bring more voice on the table. And that's what we are trying to do. So thank you so much. May I now invite Abdul Sir to really give his presentation. And it's really nice to see that he has 2 local community members who are here, and they are going to make their voice heard along with him. Thank you so much. Over to you.
Okay. Thank you and welcome to my presentation. I'm going to speak in Bangla basically because of most of the people here in Bangali, and 1 2 people there are Okay, so we have some community participant also there, so they also will talk here in Bangla. So that's why I wish to speak in Bangla for my presentation.
Do Banglish.
Okay, I can try Banglish, but the presentation self-explanatory mostly, so that the title of the presentation is little bit long. So the understanding the neoliberal economic impacts of mega infrastructure development projects, socio-economic and environmental aspects in Bangladesh. নিউলিবারাল ইকোনমিক মডেল সম্পর্কে আপনারা হয়তো অনেকেই জানবেন বা বুঝবেন, যেটাকে আমরা বলে থাকি নয়া উদারবাদী অর্থনীতি। পৃথিবীতে এখন অনেকগুলো যুদ্ধ চলছে। গাজাতে প্রতিদিন অসংখ্য শিশু, নারী, বৃদ্ধ মারা যাচ্ছেন। ইউক্রেনে যুদ্ধ চলছে। ইরান এবং পাকিস্তান বর্ডারে আপনারা জানেন যে রিসেন্ট যুদ্ধ শুরু হয়েছে। পৃথিবীর অনেক দেশে 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 মানে সো কল্ড বিচ্ছিন্নতাবাদের নামে আভ্যন্তরীণ যুদ্ধ চলছে, গৃহযুদ্ধ চলছে। এই যুদ্ধের পেছনের কার স্বার্থ, কিসের স্বার্থে এই যুদ্ধগুলো চলছে, এটা যদি আপনারা একটু খেয়াল করেন, একটু খোঁজখবর নেন, গভীরে যান, তাহলে দেখবেন যে এর পেছনে আছে বড় বড় কর্পোরেটদের স্বার্থ। অস্ত্র ব্যবসা এবং মিনারেল ব্যবসা, ফসিল ব্যবসা, পাওয়ার বিজনেস, এই জিনিসগুলো দেখবেন যে এর পেছনে আছে। ফলে এই যে রিসোর্সের কেন্দ্রীভূতিকরণ বা কতিপয় ব্যক্তি এবং প্রতিষ্ঠানের হাতে রিসোর্স তুলে দেওয়ার যে অর্থনৈতিক মডেল, সেটাই আসলে নিওলিবারাল ইকোনমিক মডেল। যে মডেলের মধ্য দিয়ে পৃথিবীর বেশিরভাগ সম্পদ পুঞ্জীভূত হয় অল্প কিছু মানুষের হাতে। বর্ণা, ক্যান ইউ প্লিজ সাপোর্ট দ্য ইউ দেয়ার সো হি ক্যান আন্ডারস্ট্যান্ড বেটার ফর ট্রান্সলেশন? So the model basically নিউলিবারাল ইকোনমিক মডেল 1980s এর শুরুর দিক থেকে এই মডেলটা আসলে ইন্ট্রোডিউস হয়, এবং এটা তখন করা হয় যে আরো উদারনৈতিক একটা অর্থনৈতিক ব্যবস্থা প্রতিষ্ঠা করার জন্য। এবং আসলে এর অন্তর্নিহিত উদ্দেশ্যটা ছিল যে ক্লাস স্ট্রাগল চলছিল পৃথিবীতে, সেখানে পুনরায় এলিটিজমকে সামনে নিয়ে আসার জন্য বা তাদের একচ্ছত্র আধিপত্য তৈরি করার জন্য। আমরা তিনটা অ্যাসপেক্টে এই আলোচনাটা করব। একটা হচ্ছে ডেভেলপমেন্ট, আমাদের থিমেটিক এরিয়াটা ধরে ডেভেলপমেন্ট, ইনক্লুশন অ্যান্ড রেজিলিয়েন্স, উন্নয়ন, অন্তর্ভুক্তিকরণ এবং সহনশীলতা, এই তিনটা জায়গা ধরে আমরা মূলত আলোচনাটা আগাবো। আমার সাথে দুইজন কমিউনিটি পার্টিসিপেন্ট আছে, ওনারাও কথা বলবেন ওনাদের জায়গা থেকে। আমি নিউলিবারাল ইকোনমিক সম্পর্কে অলরেডি আপনাদের খুব সংক্ষেপে বলেছি যে নিউলিবারাল ইকোনমি মডেলটা কি বা নয়া উদারবাদী অর্থনৈতিক কাঠামোটা কি। নিউলিবারাল ইকোনমিক মডেলের যে জিনিসগুলোকে প্রায়োরিটি দেওয়া হয়, একটা হলো এই তিনটা, একটা ইন্টারকানেক্টেড একটা মডেল। একটা হলো গ্লোবালাইজেশন অ্যান্ড ফ্রি মার্কেট এক্সপানশন, প্রাইভেটাইজেশন অ্যান্ড মিনিমাল গভর্নমেন্ট কন্ট্রোল, ফ্রি ট্রেড অ্যান্ড ডিরেগুলারাইজেশন। সো দ্যাট এই তিনটা ইন্টারকানেক্টেড ইস্যুকে, ইন্টারকানেক্টেড বিষয়কেই আসলে নিউলিবারাল ইকোনমি অ্যাড্রেস করে বা এই জিনিসগুলো নিয়ে কাজ করে, অর্থাৎ আলটিমেট রেজাল্টগুলো এখানে আসে। আপনারা যদি বর্তমান বিশ্বের যে সম্পর্ক সেটাকে একটু দেখেন, তাহলে দেখবেন যে এই প্রক্রিয়াতেই চলছে। এবং সব জায়গাতেই, বাংলাদেশের ক্ষেত্রেও যদি দেখেন যে এখানে প্রাইভেটাইজেশন বাড়ছে, সরকারের ভূমিকাটা হবে বা রাষ্ট্রের ভূমিকাটা হবে মেনলি একটা রেগুলেট করা, সব কিছু প্রাইভেট বা বেসরকারি প্রতিষ্ঠানের হাতেই থাকবে, তারাই সমস্ত কিছুকে কন্ট্রোল করবেন। ক্রিটিকের জায়গা থেকে ক্রিটিসিজম যেভাবে করা হয় নিউলিবারাল ইকোনমিক মডেলকে, সেটা কয়েকটা জায়গা। একটা হলো যে এটা ডেঞ্জার টু ডেমোক্রেসি। আপনারা যদি গ্লোবালি দেখেন যে সারা পৃথিবীতে শাসন কাঠামোটা এখন মূলত হাইব্রিড শাসকদের হাতে, এবং অনেক জায়গাতেই ডেমোক্রেসি ঠিক স্বাভাবিকভাবে কন্টিনিউ করতে পারছে না। ভায়োলেশন অফ ওয়ার্কার রাইটস, এটা বাংলাদেশে যেমন আছে, সারা পৃথিবীতেই ওয়ার্কার রাইটস ভায়োলেশন হচ্ছে নানান ফর্মে। শিশু শ্রম বাড়ছে, নারীদের উপরে নানানভাবে শ্রমের নিষ্পেষণ চাপিয়ে দেওয়া হচ্ছে, মিসগাইডেড ফ্রি মার্কেট অ্যাপ্রোচ টু পাবলিক সার্ভিসেস। আগে যে সার্ভিসটা সরকার দিত, সেই সার্ভিসগুলো আস্তে আস্তে তুলে দেওয়া হচ্ছে প্রাইভেট সেক্টরের হাতে, এবং এটার ফলে মানুষকে সার্ভিস অনেক বেশি দাম দিয়ে কিনতে হচ্ছে, এবং অনেক সময় সে একটা সিন্ডিকেটের মধ্যে পড়ছে। আমাদের দেশের পণ্যের দামের দিকে তাকালে আপনারা এটা খেয়াল করবেন যে পণ্যের দাম কোনো কোনো সময় এক একটা পণ্যের দাম হঠাৎ করে এত বেশি বেড়ে যাচ্ছে যে এটা মানুষের নাগালের বাইরে চলে যাচ্ছে। এর পেছনে আছে এরকম সব বড় বড় ব্যবসায়ীদের সিন্ডিকেটের ভূমিকা। রাইজিং ইনইকুয়ালিটি, এবং সারা পৃথিবীতেই একদিকে বলা হচ্ছে পৃথিবী ধনী হচ্ছে, জিডিপি বাড়ছে, সম্পদ বাড়ছে, কিন্তু অন্যদিকে ইনইকুয়ালিটিও সমানভাবে বাড়ছে, অর্থাৎ সম্পদ কেন্দ্রীভূত হচ্ছে একদিকে, অন্যদিকে একটা বিপুল অংশের মানুষ সম্পদ ভোগ করা থেকে বঞ্চিত হচ্ছে। গ্লোবাল ইনইকুয়ালিটি ট্রেন্ডটা যদি আপনারা দেখেন, এখানে আমরা অক্সফামের একটা রিপোর্টকে বেস করে করেছি যে 95% ফুড অ্যান্ড এনার্জি কর্পোরেশনস হ্যাভ মোর দ্যান ডাবল দেয়ার প্রফিট ইন 2022। 2022 সালে কর্পোরেটগুলো 95টা কর্পোরেট তাদের মুনাফা প্রায় দ্বিগুণ হয়ে গেছে। এবং দ্য ওয়ার্ল্ড 5 রিচেস্ট ম্যান হ্যাভ মোর দ্যান ডাবল দেয়ার ফরচুনস ফ্রম 405 বিলিয়ন থেকে 869 বিলিয়ন ডলারে তাদের সম্পদ পরিণত হয়েছে 2020 সালে, এবং তারা প্রতি ঘন্টায় 14 মিলিয়ন ডলার মুনাফা করে, এবং নিয়ারলি 5 বিলিয়ন পিপল হ্যাভ বিন মেড পুরার। উপরের দুইটা তথ্যের সাথে নিচের তথ্যটা একটু মেলালেই বুঝতে পারবেন যে এখানে 5 বিলিয়ন মানুষ প্রতিদিন মানুষ দারিদ্র্যসীমার নিচে বসবাস করে, এবং 1.7 বিলিয়ন ওয়ার্কার্স নাও লিভ ইন দ্য কান্ট্রি, যেখানে যেখানে স্যালারি কমছে, মজুরি কমছে, এরকম একটা পরিস্থিতির মধ্যে তারা বসবাস করেন, এবং রাফলি 10 জনে একজন ক্ষুধার্ত অবস্থায় রাতে বিছানায় ঘুমাতে যান। The World Bank observed the biggest increase in global inequality and poverty recently since অর্থাৎ এই সময়ে রিসেন্ট সময়গুলোতে, বিশেষ করে কোভিড এবং কোভিড পরবর্তী সময়গুলোতে ইনইকুয়ালিটি এবং সম্পদের ভাগ দরিদ্রদের কাছে কম পৌঁছাচ্ছে। বাংলাদেশের ক্ষেত্রে যদি আমরা একটু দেখি যে কনজাম্পশন এবং ইনইকুয়ালিটিটা কিভাবে বাড়ছে, তাহলে 2022, 2010, 2016 এবং 2022-এর জায়গা থেকে যদি দেখেন তাহলে দেখেন যে আস্তে আস্তে করে আমাদের কিন্তু কনজাম্পশন করার ক্ষমতা কমছে মানুষের, এবং ইনইকুয়ালিটিটা আস্তে আস্তে বাড়ছে। আমরা একটা সেক্টরের কয়েকটা কেস একটু এখানে প্রেজেন্ট করতে চাই, সেটা হলো এনার্জি সেক্টর নিয়ে। বাংলাদেশের এনার্জি অ্যান্ড পাওয়ার সেক্টরে কি ঘটছে আমরা কয়েকটা কেস আপনাদের সামনে প্রেজেন্ট করব। এইখানে এনার্জি সেক্টরের মেগা প্রজেক্টের দিক যদি দেখি, যে আপনারা জানেন যে আমাদের মোটামুটি গত 10-15 বছর ধরে এনার্জি সেক্টরে অনেকগুলো মেগা প্রকল্প বাস্তবায়িত হচ্ছে। মেগা কোল পাওয়ার প্ল্যান্ট, মেগা এলএনজি পাওয়ার প্ল্যান্ট, মেগা নিউক্লিয়ার পাওয়ার প্ল্যান্ট হচ্ছে, এবং এই পাওয়ার প্ল্যান্টগুলোতে নানান ধরনের ভায়োলেশন আছে। এবং এনার্জি সেক্টর যদি দেখেন যে 2017 থেকে 2022 সালে, 17-18 থেকে 2021-22 সালে প্রায় 75,000 কোটি টাকা প্রাইভেট সেক্টরকে দিয়েছে ক্যাপাসিটি চার্জ বাবদ, এবং যে কোম্পানিগুলোকে ক্যাপাসিটি চার্জ দেওয়া হয়েছে তাদের যে পরিমাণ পাওয়ার জেনারেশন করার কথা ছিল তারা খুবই মিনিমাম পাওয়ার জেনারেশন করেছে, এবং অলমোস্ট অনেকগুলো পাওয়ার প্ল্যান্টের মানে জেনারেশন ক্যাপাসিটি ছিল 0, বাট তারা ক্যাপাসিটি চার্জের নামে বিপুল পরিমাণ অর্থ সরকারের কাছ থেকে গ্রহণ করেছে, 75,000 কোটি টাকা মাত্র 4 বছর 5 বছরের মধ্যে, এবং এটা পুরাটাই পাবলিক মানি। আমরা যদি যে ইনফরমেশনটা আমি অলরেডি দিয়ে গিয়েছি, এরপরে যদি আমি আরেকটু আগাই, যে মেগা প্রকল্পে এলাকাগুলোতে কি ধরনের ভায়োলেশন হচ্ছে, কি ধরনের ইনইকুয়ালিটি তৈরি হচ্ছে, কি ধরনের পরিবেশের ক্ষতি হচ্ছে, সেই জায়গাগুলো যদি আমরা একটু দেখি, তাহলে এখানে ডিসপ্লেসমেন্ট একটা বড় ইস্যু। অর্থাৎ ল্যান্ড অ্যাকুইজিশন যখন করা হয় তখন লোকাল পিপল দুইভাবে ডিসপ্লেসড হয়। একভাবে হয় যে তারা ডিরেক্ট ফিজিক্যালি ডিসপ্লেসড হয়, আরেকটা হয় যে তারা তাদের লাইভলিহুড, জীবন জীবিকা হারায়, এবং এই সংখ্যাটা বিপুল। আপনারা যদি একটু খোঁজখবর রাখেন দেখবেন যে পত্রিকায় প্রচুর রিপোর্ট পাবেন এগুলো নিয়ে, যেখানে মেগা প্রকল্পগুলো হচ্ছে সেখানে কি পরিমাণ মানুষ তাদের ভিটা থেকে উচ্ছেদ হচ্ছে, তাদের জমি হারাচ্ছে, এবং তাদের জীবন জীবিকা থেকে উচ্ছেদ হচ্ছে। এবং পরিবেশের জায়গা থেকে যদি আমি ধরি তাহলে নদীর জায়গা থেকে দেখলে ধরেন কোহেলিয়া নদী একটা জীবন্ত নদী কয়েকদিনের মধ্যে নেই হয়ে গেছে, সেই নদীর উপর দিয়ে এখন একটা বিরাট রাস্তা। আমরা আন্ধারমানিক নদীতে যে ইলিশের অভয়ারণ্য ছিল, সেই ইলিশের অভয়ারণ্য এবং ক্ষতিগ্রস্ত, এবং নদীগুলোতে বিশেষ করে মেগা পাওয়ার প্ল্যান্টের কাছাকাছির জলাশয় এবং নদীগুলোতে মাছের পরিমাণ ড্রাস্টিক্যালি কমে গেছে গত কয়েক বছরের মধ্যে। এটা স্থানীয় মানুষের অবজারভেশন দিয়ে আমরা বলতে পারি। তো আমার সাথে দুইজন কমিউনিটি পার্টিসিপেন্ট আছে, আমি আলোচনাটা আর দীর্ঘায়িত করছি না আমার দিক থেকে। আমার মনে হয় ওনাদের জীবনের অভিজ্ঞতার জায়গা থেকে যদি অল্প করে 2-1 মিনিট করে বলেন যে ওনারা আসলে কি ধরনের পরিস্থিতি ফেস করছেন লোকালি, তাহলে আমি এখানে কতগুলো পত্রিকার রিপোর্টের কাটিং শেয়ার করেছি, আপনারা দেখতে পারেন, এগুলো আমি এক্সপ্লেন করছি না। হিলসা হ্যাবিটেট আন্ডার থ্রেট, প্রাণ হারিয়েছে কোহেলিয়া নদী, তারপরে বন্ধ হচ্ছে না মহেশখালীর পরিবেশ বিধ্বংসী কাজ, তারপরে এই পাশে মহেশখালী নিয়ে বোধহয় আরেকটা রিপোর্ট আছে, আমি এখান থেকে দেখতে পাচ্ছি না। এখানে আছে কিভাবে রেজিলিয়েন্সের জন্য মানুষ লড়াই করছে কমিউনিটিতে, তারা মানববন্ধন করছে, তারা মেমোরেন্ডাম
Abul sir,
সাবমিট করছে, তারা
sorry,
নিজেদের মধ্যে কথা বলছে।
sorry, I'm interrupting. Maybe it is a good idea to have them here and they speak and you can scroll the news items here. So
Okay.
is that fine?
Okay.
Because
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
So the resilience, for example, from Action Aid initiative as, so we are providing community renewable powered appliances for their livelihood. So এখানে 3টা ছবি আছে, আপনারা দেখছেন যে সেলাই মেশিন, এগুলো রিনিউয়েবল পাওয়ার মানে সোলার পাওয়ার্ড সেলাই মেশিন, এবং মাঝের ছবিটা দেখছেন যে আমরা ছোট ছোট ইনকিউবেটর দিচ্ছি। এটা অসাধারণ একটা ইনোভেটিভ আইডিয়া আমরা কমিউনিটিকে দিচ্ছি। একটা ছোট ইনকিউবেটর, এটাতে খরচ হয় 1.5 লাখ টাকার মতো, এবং এটার মধ্য দিয়ে একটা প্রায় 30 থেকে 40টা পরিবারের ইনকামের ব্যবস্থা হয় এটার মধ্য দিয়ে, এবং কমপক্ষে 10 জন নারীর একটা উদ্যোক্তা টিম গড়ে ওঠে একটা ছোট্ট 1.5 লাখ টাকার একটা ইনভেস্টমেন্টের মধ্য দিয়ে। এটা অসাধারণ একটা মডেল যেটা অ্যাকশন এইড করছে কমিউনিটিতে। পাশে আরেকটা ছবি আছে, এখানেও আমরা নানান ধরনের ডিভাইস দিচ্ছি, অ্যাপ্লায়েন্সেস দিচ্ছি কমিউনিটিকে, যেগুলো সোলার পাওয়ার্ড। সো আমরা একদিকে যেমন মানুষ ক্ষতির শিকার হচ্ছে, এফেক্টেড হচ্ছে, অন্যদিকে তাদেরকে আমরা তাদের সহনশীলতা গড়ে তোলার জন্য সাপোর্টগুলো দিচ্ছি। আমরা সরকারের সাথে অ্যাডভোকেসি করছি, প্রাইভেট সেক্টরের সাথে অ্যাডভোকেসি করছি, তারাও যেন এই ধরনের উদ্যোগগুলোতে এগিয়ে আসেন এবং এগুলোকে রেপ্লিকেট করেন এবং এগুলো আরও বিস্তৃতভাবে ছড়িয়ে দেন। তাহলে আমরা একই সাথে জলবায়ু, একই সাথে আমাদের ওয়াটার এবং পরিবেশের উপর একটা ইতিবাচক প্রভাব পড়বে। তো আমি এখন একটু আহ্বান জানাবো আমাদের মহেশখালী থেকে যিনি এসছেন, উনি যদি একটু ওনার কথাগুলো 2 মিনিটে ওভারঅল জায়গা থেকে যদি একটু বলেন প্লিজ।
Thank you.
ধন্যবাদ। আমি আনসারুল করিম। আমি কক্সবাজার জেলার মহেশখালী উপজেলার মাতারবাড়ি থেকে আসছি। আমার মাতারবাড়ি দলগাটা ইউনিয়নে মূলত 2টি অর্থকরী ফসল নিয়ে আমাদের জীবিকা নির্বাহ হয়। একটা হচ্ছে লবণ, একটা হচ্ছে ফিশ। কিন্তু সরকারের মেগা প্রকল্পের নাম দিয়ে আমাদের ল্যান্ড অ্যাকুইজিশনের মাধ্যমে আমাদের যে অর্থকরী ফসল উৎপাদনের জায়গা, সেগুলা অ্যাকুইজিশন করার ফলে আমাদের একদিকে লবণ যেমন উৎপাদন করা যাচ্ছে না, তেমনি আমাদের একটা নদী ছিল কুহেলিয়া নদী। সেই নদীটা এই অ্যাকুইজিশন ল্যান্ড অ্যাকুইজিশনের এই জায়গায় জমিগুলা ভরাট করার মাধ্যমে ওই নদীগুলা সম্পূর্ণ ভরাট হয়ে গেছে। কুহেলিয়া নদীটা বর্তমানে নামে আছে, কিন্তু তার অস্তিত্ব প্রায় বিপন্ন। যার কারণে আমাদের জীবন এখন, আমার অর্থনৈতিক জীবন বলতে গেলে হুমকির মধ্যেই আছি আমরা। আমরা যে স্বাচ্ছন্দ্য জীবন যাপন করতাম সেটা এখন অনেক ঝুঁকির মধ্যে। আমরা স্বাভাবিক অর্থনৈতিক জীবন নির্বাহ করতে পারছি না সরকারের উন্নয়ন প্রকল্পের কারণে।
আপনার সাথে কেউ আরো এসছে না, তো আপনি
আমার
ওনাকে
মহেশখালী
রাখবেন।
থেকে আসে নাই, বরিশাল থেকে আরেকজন
হ্যাঁ।
আসছেন যিনিও
আপনি
এভাবে।
কি আসবেন আগে প্লিজ? হ্যাঁ, থ্যাংক ইউ সো মাচ। হ্যাঁ,
ধন্যবাদ।
আসসালামু আলাইকুম। আমি মোহাম্মদ হাসান খান, পটুয়াখালী, কলাপাড়া। আসলে আমার 2টা জিনিস নিয়ে কথা বলার আছে। যে আমি রাবনাবাদ চ্যানেলের একজন রাবনাবাদ চ্যানেলের একজন অন্তর্গত একজন লোক। আমি মাছ এবং কৃষির উপরে নির্ভরশীল। আমরা রাবনাবাদ চ্যানেলে আজ থেকে 2, 4, 5 বছর আগে যেভাবে মাছ ধরতাম, গত 2, 3 বছর যাবত আমরা তেমন কোনো মাছ পাই না। প্লাস আমরা খুবই ঋণের ভিতরে গড়াই যেতেছি। আমরা যদি 3 দিন মাছ পাই, তবে মাসের 27 দিনই আমরা মাছ পাই না, এবং আমরা এত বড় ঋণের ভিতরে আস্তে আস্তে জড়াই যেতে আছি যা আমরা কল্পনাও করতে পারতেছি না। আর রাবনাবাদ চ্যানেল যেহেতু আন্দারবানিক নদী একটা অভয় আশ্রয়কেন্দ্র, মাছের জন্য আশ্রয়কেন্দ্র রাখা হয়েছিল, আমরা কখনোই আন্দারমানিক এবং রাবনাবাদ পাশাপাশি 2টা চ্যানেল, কিন্তু আমরা কখনোই রাবনাবাদে মাছ ধরিনি। কিন্তু সেই রাবনাবাদে পরপর 3 থেকে 4 কিলোমিটার ভিতরে 2টা ব্রিজ অলরেডি হয়ে গেছে, আর একটা ব্রিজ হইতে আছে, যেটারে বলা হয় পায়রা বন্দর কর্তৃক 6 লাইন একটা ব্রিজ হবে। তো সেই রাবনাবাদও এখন মৃত্যুর মুখে। মাছের অভয়াশ্রয় কেন্দ্র তো দূরের কথা, সেটাও এখন মৃত্যুর মুখে। আর একটা ব্রিজ হইলে সম্ভবত সেখানে নদীটা চরই হয়ে যাবে, স্রোত মার খেয়ে গেছে, চর চর পড়তে আছে। আর দেখা যায় যে আমরা এখন আধুনিক যুগে, আধুনিক অবস্থায় আমরা সেই আমার বাপ দাদা যেভাবে চলছে আমরা সেভাবে চলছি মাছ ধরা নিয়ে, কিন্তু কখনো কখনো আমরা দুর্ঘটনায় শিকার হই যে আজ দেখি একরকমের নদীর অবস্থা, কাল দেখি আর এক রকমের। যেমন আমাদের হাতে তেমন কোনো আধুনিক কিছু যে পৌঁছায় নাই, যারা জেলে আছি আমরা, হঠাৎ দেখা যায় আমি যে জায়গায় 1 সপ্তাহ চলাচল করি নাই আমার ট্রলার নিয়ে, সেখান দিয়ে হঠাৎ করে আমি চলাচল করতে গেলে দেখা যায় সে জায়গায় চর সৃষ্টি হয়েছে। যে চরের সৃষ্টি হনে একটা গভীরতার ভিতরে একটা জেলে একরকমের থাকে, জাস্ট চরের উপরে যদি উঠে যায় সে অন্তত একদম মানে ধ্বংস হয়ে আসবে। সেজন্য আমি বলছি যে আমাদের লাঞ্চ বিরতির আগে একটা ছাড় একটা কথা বলছে যে আমরা গ্রামের মানুষ, একটা কথাই জানি যে কিভাবে আমাদের কিছু টাকা ইনকাম হবে আর কিভাবে সংসারটা চলবে। পানি দূষিত হচ্ছে না নদী ভরাট হচ্ছে সেটা কিন্তু আমরা বলতে পারি না। আসলে মাছটা কোথা থেকে কমছে, কোথা থেকে আসছে আর কোথা থেকে যাচ্ছে সেটাও আমরা বলতে পারি না। আমরা জানি যেন জাস্ট কিভাবে দুমুঠো ভাত খাবো। এই বলে আপনাদেরকে ধন্যবাদ দিয়ে আমি
Thank you so much.
So can I translate
That
very briefly?
I think, do we need to, because you also made the entire presentation in Bangla, so yeah, would you like to? I think we are good to go.
Okay, so the
because, thank
first speaker about from Mohesh.
And I
Okay.
think it is not required. Thank you so much, Abul sir. Thank you for bringing the live example of exclusion actually, and getting their voice heard. Ekhane. Usually there's a normal tendency, human instinct, that we go with the last presenter because it's fresh in our mind. But I would really like to appreciate patience of my previous presenters and take the questions based on the sequence of the presentation, not in the reverse order, to be fair to everyone. Yeah, so may I invite questions if you have for Asharfi and Noore, who are present here on the dais, because they had some serious anecdotal reference on how salinity is leading to domestic violence or gender violence, and it's a deeper issue than actually just having salinity. So any questions from the people here? And if you have questions, comments, or suggestions, very much welcome for them. And maybe I request another mic there so that we can use this one at the dais. Yeah. And until then, maybe we share this. We can share this for the time being till that one is found.
ধন্যবাদ। আমি আমাদের দুই বোন এই সেশনে সব মনে হচ্ছে আমার এলাকার কথাবার্তা, আমার কিছু সবকিছু একটা অন্যরকম মনে লাগলো। তো আপার কাছে আসলে প্রথমে আমার যেটা জানার আছে যে এই যে তাদের সাথে যে প্রশ্নগুলো করছে সেগুলো কি একদম লোকাল মানুষ দিয়ে করেছেন না আপনারা নিজেরা করেছেন, সেটা একটুখানি আমার জানার। কারণ আমরাও ওখানে এই গবেষণা করেছি অ্যাকশন এডের সহযোগিতায়, সেখানে আরও 2টা জিনিস উঠে আসছে, সেটা আপনার এখানে পাইনি। একটা হচ্ছে ইদানিংকালে অনেক প্রতিবন্ধী শিশু জন্মগ্রহণ করছে, স্যালাইনিটি, এবং শুধু স্যালাইনিটি না, ওখানে কিন্তু আন্ডারগ্রাউন্ড থেকে যে পানি ওঠে সেই পানিটা হচ্ছে আয়রন। তো সেই জন্য প্রতিবন্ধী শিশু জন্ম হচ্ছে, এটা একটা। আরেকটা জিনিস হচ্ছে অনেক মায়েরাই তাদের ইউট্রেস ফেলে দিতে হচ্ছে, ইউট্রেস তারা রাখছে না, সেইটা একটা সমস্যা। আরেকটা সমস্যা হচ্ছে এই যে বাল্য বিবাহটা এত বৃদ্ধি পাচ্ছে, তার কারণ ওই যে স্যালাইন ওয়াটারের জন্য মেয়েদের স্কিন কালো হয়ে যাচ্ছে, তাদেরকে অল্প বয়সী বয়স্ক দেখা যায়, সেজন্য বাবা মা তাড়াতাড়ি তাদেরকে বিয়ে দিচ্ছে, এবং এই বিয়ে দেওয়ার ফলে সে যখন ফ্যামিলিতে যে অ্যাডজাস্ট করতে পারছে না, তখন সেখানে জেন্ডার বেস ভায়োলেন্সটা খুব বেশি হারে বাড়ছে। তো সেই জায়গাটাও আপনাদের এটার ভিতরে একটু নিয়ে আসলে ই হবে। আর আপনাদের রিপোর্টটা একটু যদি আমরা পেতে পারি তাহলে উপকৃত হব।
Thank you so much. Um, Thank you for your presentation. I was thinking also that you have shown us what the problem is and tried to make the link with salinity. But you have defined gender-based violence. But gender-based violence in those communities existed from before. So you need to have some inclusion in terms of যে এই ওনারা যেই সমাজে যেই কমিউনিটিতে বসবাস করেন সেখানে আগের থেকেও নারীর প্রতি সহিংসতা ছিল। তো নারীর প্রতি সহিংসতার মাত্রাটা বেড়ে গেল কিনা বা নারীর প্রতি সহিংসতা নতুন করে শুরু হলো কিনা আপনাদের যদি একটু এটা থাকে তাহলে ভালো হয়। আর যেহেতু আপনারা একটা স্বাস্থ্যগত বিষয় নিয়ে বলছেন, গবেষণায় কিছু রেফারেন্স দেবেন যারা স্বাস্থ্যের বিষয়ে বিশেষজ্ঞ। নালে আমি তো গল্প শুনে বলছি। আমি যেমন অনেক সময় বলছি যে আমি কুয়াকাটায় কাজ করি, কলাপাড়ায় কাজ করি, সাতক্ষীরায় যাই, তালায় যাই, বান্দরবনে যাই। তো ওটা আমি গল্পটা নিয়ে এসে বলি, কিন্তু আমার একটা দুটা পাঁচটা ঘটনাকে দিয়ে তো একটা সায়েন্টিফিক বা একটা ইয়ে হয় না। তো ওই রেফারেন্সগুলো আমি জানি না আপনাদের পেপারে আছে কিনা। আর দ্বিতীয়ত যে যে কাজলাপা যেটা বললেন যে বাল্যবিবাহ হয়ে যাচ্ছে, কেন ওদের স্যালাইনিটির কারণে ওদের চামড়ার রং, মানে সেই বাল্যবিবাহ যে কোনো একটা ছোটা হলেই হলো, তাহলেই আমরা বাল্যবিবাহ দিচ্ছি, তাই না?
Also read out the online question. We are coming to you. Okay, they will join for, okay, sure. It's just an information.
Can we connect the online person? Yeah, there is no, sorry, I'm Sumaya. I work for International Center for Climate Change and Development, ICAD. So, I'll first, আমি আপনাদের দুইজনকে আসলে হচ্ছে ধন্যবাদ দিতে চাই এত ভালোভাবে একটা জিনিস ফুটিয়ে আনার জন্য, কারণ এই সেক্টরে আসলে আমাদের নারীদেরই কাজ করতে হবে, না হলে আসলে আমরা সঠিক ইনফরমেশনগুলা এভাবে করে নিয়ে আসতে পারবো না। এই জন্য আপনাদেরকে অনেক ধন্যবাদ। আর দ্বিতীয়ত হচ্ছে ফারা আপা এবং কাজল আপা দুইজনের সাথে আমি ইকো করব সবগুলা সাজেশনের ক্ষেত্রে। আর যদি ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জের ক্ষেত্রে অথবা স্বাস্থ্যগত বিষয়ে আইসিডিডিআরবি আছে বা অন্য যারা আছে তাদের কাছ থেকে আপনাদের কোনো কোলাবোরেশন বা কোঅর্ডিনেশনের দরকার হয়, সেক্ষেত্রে আমরা আছি, আমাদেরকে জানাবেন কোনো যদি আপনাদের সাথে সহযোগিতা করতে পারি।
Thank you for such kind and encouraging words for the presenters. Last question, please try to be precise.
My name is Suhan Rahman, working with YouthNet for Climate Justice. এবং যে আপা রেখামারিতে গিয়েছিলেন তাকে অসংখ্য ধন্যবাদ, কারণ এক পাশে ঢাংমারি নদী আর এক পাশে হচ্ছে আপনার পশুর নদী, তার মাঝে ছোট্ট এক চিলতে গ্রাম, হয়তো 3 মাস পর রেখামারি থাকবেও না। সো কপের আগে আমরা মোমেন আপার নামে এক আপার সাথে দেখা করেছিলাম। সো যখন জিজ্ঞেস করলাম কেমন আছেন, সে হাসছে। তারপর বলে আপনি হাসছেন, এত কষ্টের মধ্যে আছেন? বলে উই হ্যাভ নো ওয়ান টু ফিল আওয়ার সাফারিংস। সো তাদের সেই যে বিষয়গুলো তুলে এনেছেন। আমি শেষ করছি যে কথাটা বলে, চাইল্ড ম্যারেজের কথা এসেছে এবং স্যালাইনিটি যখন বাড়ে এর সাথে ওখানকার মেয়েরা কালো হয়ে যাওয়ার বিষয়ও কিন্তু ডয়চে ভেলে নিয়ে এসেছে, তাকে বলছে লবণাক্ততার বর্ণবাদ। সো আমরা ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জ বলি আর জেন্ডার ইস্যু বলি, পৌরষ কিংবা মাস্কুলিটি এটা বাদ দিয়ে কিন্তু এটাকে দেখার সুযোগ নাই। সো হাউ ইউ অ্যাপ্লাই দ্য মাস্কুলিটি লেন্স ইউর রিসার্চ, সো এনি ফাইন্ডিংস অর এনি থট অ্যাবাউট দ্যাট? থ্যাংক ইউ।
থ্যাংক ইউ আপা। প্রথমত আমি একটু বলি, আমার ফুল প্রেজেন্টেশনে মোটামুটি এখানে 20টা মতো স্লাইড ছিল। আমি আসলে সবগুলো স্লাইড ব্যাখ্যা করতেও পারিনি সময় স্বল্পতার জন্য। আমার একটা স্লাইডে উল্লেখ করাই হয়েছে যে আর্লি ম্যারেজ হয়ে যাচ্ছে, সেখানে হচ্ছে প্রতিবন্ধী শিশুর জন্মগ্রহণ থেকে শুরু করে ডার্ক কমপ্লেকশনের কারণে আর্লি ম্যারেজ হয়ে যাচ্ছে, এটা আমার এসেছে। আর যেহেতু আমাদের রিসার্চের অবজেক্টিভটা ছিল যে আসলে কি ধরনের ভায়োলেশন হচ্ছে এবং সেখানে স্যালাইনিটির সাথে কোনো সম্পর্ক রয়েছে কিনা। ফারা আপা ঠিক বলেছেন যে ভায়োলেশন তো অনেকভাবেই হতে পারে, সেখানে আসলে স্যালাইনিটির ভূমিকাটা কি। সেক্ষেত্রে আমরা যেটা করেছিলাম যে রেসপন্ডেন্ট আমরা আমাদের 5টা এফজিডি করেছিলাম রেসপন্ডেন্টের উপর। আমরা আসলে তাদের কথার জাস্টিফিকেশনের জন্য আমরা কেআই করেছিলাম, কে ইনফরমেন্ট ইন্টারভিউ, আসলে ওখানকার যারা লোকাল প্র্যাকটিশনার্স রয়েছে। এবং আমার প্রেজেন্টেশন একটা স্লাইড রয়েছে, গভর্নমেন্ট যে রেজিস্টার্ড হসপিটালগুলো রয়েছে সেখানে আসলে কতজন এই ধরনের রোগী যায় যারা স্যালাইনিটির কারণে তাদের মিনিস্ট্রুরাল এবং সেক্সুয়াল হেলথটা বা প্রেগনেন্সি পিরিয়ডে তারা যে প্রবলেমগুলো হচ্ছে। এখানে আমি বলতে পারি না, ওখানে কিন্তু অ্যাবর্শনও হয়, অ্যাবর্শনও ওখানে প্রচুর পরিমাণে হচ্ছে। তো এই বিষয়গুলো সম্পূর্ণটা কিন্তু আসছে হচ্ছে স্যালাইনিটির কারণে। এবং একজন মেয়ে যখন স্যালাইনিটির কারণে তার হেলথটা ভালো থাকছে না, সে যখন তার কাজগুলো ঠিকভাবে করছে না, আসলে সেটার কারণে সে ভায়োলেশনের শিকার হচ্ছে। তো আমি আসলে এখানে পুরো প্রেজেন্টেশনটা করতে পারিনি। আর ডেফিনেটলি অল থিংস আর ইনক্লুডেড ইন মাই রিপোর্ট। আপনারা কেউ যদি ফার্দার কোনো ধরনের কোনো ইনফরমেশন আমার সাথে মানে আমার কাছ থেকে জানতে চান, সেক্ষেত্রে আমি শেয়ার করতে পারি। আসলে এটা সময়ের কারণে আমি পুরোটা আসলে এক্সপ্লেইন করতে পারিনি এখানে।
Thank you so much. I think the younger generation, for younger generation, it is also important to learn because you people are now emerging warriors. We have to learn to put everything on within the time frame because the discussion should be longer than the presentation. So that's an advice to all the younger generation sitting here. So thank you for the really immersive topic. May I now invite questions for our second speaker, Marzia? Very similar question topic, so you can actually pick some question and which was right now there. And if there is any question from the participants, if you would like to, please pose the question directly instead of telling what's going on in your place, because we already heard that from the presenters. Thank you. And appreciate if it can be again back to English, please. I mean, I'm really fortunate to moderate this session and also knowing Bengali. Otherwise, I would have been in a very, very back foot situation.
Appa would like to request you to take the question online. So
Okay,
this
there
is
is a
from our
question
Kolapara.
online. Thank you so much for আপনারা এসেছেন এখানে, প্লিজ আপনারা নিজের কোয়েশ্চেনটা রাখুন এখানে, তো আমরা শুনতে পারবো। আচ্ছা, আমরা শুনতে পাচ্ছি না। হ্যাঁ, কিন্তু আমরা শুনতে পাচ্ছি না। আমরা কিন্তু আপনাকে শুনতে পাচ্ছি না, যদি আপনি আমাকে শুনতে পাচ্ছেন। ওকে, আমরা জাস্ট একটু অ্যারেঞ্জ করছি, জাস্ট গিভ আস আ সেকেন্ড। আর আপনারা ওখানে থেকে অ্যাকচুয়ালি কাউকে দিয়ে ফোন করে আমাদের যদি কোশ্চেনটা জানিয়ে দেন সেটাও হবে। আমরা আপনাকে দেখতে পাচ্ছি, ফোন যদি করে দেন এখানে অ্যাকশন নেটকে কাউকে অ্যান্ড পোজ ইয়োর কোয়েশ্চেন, দ্যাট ক্যান অলসো ওয়ার্ক ফর আস। উইল দ্যাট ওয়ার্ক অ্যাকশনের পিপল? কাউকে ফোন করতে পারবে ওখান থেকে? শিওর শিওর, সরি। ইয়া, যতক্ষণ আপনার আওয়াজটা এখানে আসবে ততক্ষণ আমরা অন্য কোয়েশ্চেন্সগুলো নিয়ে নিচ্ছি স্যার, হ্যাঁ না? So I will continue inviting question for Marzia because both the presentations were in alignment with domestic violence. Yes, that's part of the game. But at least it's good that we are inclusive in this. ট্রাই করবেন এবার বলার চেষ্টা করুন একটু and till then if there is any hand raised we can actually take those questions as well so that Marzia can get ready. বলছি আগেও বলছিলেন আমার মনে হয় আপনি ফোনে কোয়েশ্চেনটা নিয়ে নিন হ্যাঁ নিয়ে নিন Is there any question for Marzia here? I'm going to pose a question till you find a question from her. So, do you feel that being a woman in the field and going on studying these women issues, uh, have you ever come across where actually we are discussing men in water? Like just a discussion happened on that we have to start discussing about masculinity. Because often we are going in gender studies going to the women studies, you know. But I'm just asking, it's out not within your presentation, but what kind of issues men face in these situations?
হ্যাঁ
I'm sure
জনাল
they are
ভাই
also
পরিচয় দিয়ে
stressed.
বলেন একটু আমি মাইকে ধরছি হ্যাঁ জনাল ভাই
জি
পরিচয় দেন তারপর বলেন
জি আপা
হ্যাঁ বলেন
আসসালামু আলাইকুম আমার নাম জনাল আব্দিন আমি আসলে পানি জাদুঘরের সচিব পদে আছি তো আমি বলতে চাচ্ছি যে কলাপাড়াতে 1.5 শতাধিক জেলে পরিবার ক্ষতিগ্রস্ত হয়েছে শুধু তাই নয় আমাদের এই কলাপাড়ায় প্রায় অনেক কৃষকের কৃষি জমি হারাইতে হয়েছে এই আপনার পাওয়ার প্ল্যান্ট হওয়ার কারণে পাওয়ার প্ল্যান্ট হওয়ার কারণে জেলে পরিবার ক্ষতিগ্রস্ত হয়েছে জমিওয়ালারা ক্ষতিগ্রস্ত হয়েছে এবং এই যে সাগরে যে রেণু মাছ ছিল বড় মাছ সহ এবং রেণু মাছ সহ সব মাছগুলোই যদি চলে গেছে এখন আর সে আগের মতো মাছ নেই তারপর মনে করেন এই যে স্যালাইনিটি যে অবস্থাটা এখন আমরা আগে কতটুকু কম ছিল এখন তার চেয়ে একটু অনেক বেশি আবার একটু বেড়ে গেছে এই সংখ্যাটা আর আমাদের এখানে যে নদ নদীগুলো আছে এই নদ নদীগুলো তো শুকিয়ে গেছে একদম মানে একদম ভরাট হয়ে গেছে মাছ তো বলতে এখন আর এখানে মাছ পাওয়া যাচ্ছে না দূর সমুদ্রে পাওয়া যায় কিন্তু আমাদের আন্দারমানিক যে নদী আছে এই নদীতে এখনো মাছ আর পাওয়া যাচ্ছে না এখন সেই ইলিশ মাছ এখন আর নাই অনেক মাছগুলো বিলুপ্ত হয়ে গেছে আসলে পাওয়ার প্ল্যান্ট থেকে এমনটা বলে যে আমরা পানিটা ঠান্ডা করে দিচ্ছি কিন্তু আসলে তাহলে আমাদের মাছগুলো গেল
আপনার প্রশ্নটা কি সেইটা করেন কোনো প্রশ্ন আছে এই তিনটা যে পেপার প্রেজেন্টেশন দেখছেন ওইখানে প্রশ্ন আছে কিনা
হ্যাঁ আমাদের পরে এই যে স্যালাইনিটি এটা তো আবার আরো আগে এখন বেড়ে গেছে আর বিগত হয়ে গেছে এখন এটা আমাদের মাছের সংখ্যা এই পাওয়ার প্ল্যান্ট থেকে হওয়ার কারণে তো মাছ বহুত কমে গেছে এখান থেকে কি করা যায়
এটা কি করা যায় আপনাদের আর কোনো এমনি এই যে আপনারা যে পানি জাদুঘর পরিচালনা করছেন বা সেই ব্যাপারে কিছু বলার আছে সুন্দর করে যে আমাদের জাদুঘরটা আমন্ত্রণ জানান সবাইকে জাদুঘর দেখার জন্য হ্যাঁ আচ্ছা
Yes.
ঠিক আছে থ্যাংক ইউ
I think there is a similarity between the previous two community speakers and Janal Bhai from Water Museum, that they're losing fish as a species, fish as a population, and the implication of that is loss of livelihood. And so they have lost their agricultural land and there's also loss of livelihood. And so this is where the problem arises. And I think, I'm sure Marzia will respond to your question. There's a serious gender dimension to this violence. Climate change induced violence is very strong on that. So maybe she'll address.
Thank you. My paper was mainly based on women impacts and focusing on their unpaid roles and the burdens. But few of Few of my participants were also male, and I'm also from a region where I already faced climate change by myself. I lost my home twice due to river erosion, and I'm also working on other paper on this. But regarding this paper, obviously men are also facing impacts of salinity, because they are losing their traditional employment opportunities. They are not literate. Obviously they are literate in some extent, but they are not formally highly educated persons, so their traditional income opportunities are also reducing. But as my focus was narrowed down on women roles, that's why I didn't include all this in my paper in a comprehensive way. Thank you.
Actually, when we are talking about losing land, livelihood, thinking about men is an integral part of it. It's like it's for them. So when we think about farmers, when we think about fishermen, when we think about man-made, it's man is integral to it. So we often tend to not discuss about it, but it's high time if we want to solve water problems. We also have to talk about what men do, wrongdoings also, but also what men face as stress. I mean, it is equally important because they are equal human beings as us. And I think the onus lies on women that we have to talk about men, because in our societies, we have trained men not to cry, not to leave jobs, so they take the burden of livelihood. So there are other things as well, but not probably in this session. But we heard two men from the community. They came as a voice of the community. যে দুজনে এসে ওনারা বললেন, and a major I think take away from your presentation, Abul sir, was that the loss of land is also linked to loss of livelihood, which is coming out very clear from the local communities and all the conversation. And then you actually top it up with talking about triple framework and triple burden probably, and multiple burden on women. So is there any question for Abul sir and both the communities? We take them all together and then we hand it over to you to answer them. Yeah, can you please share the mic? Is there an extra mic out there? Yeah, yeah. Yeah, please give it to him first. Yeah. Yeah.
Sir, thank you for your projects that I'm gonna be very specific. You are handing over some solar panels. I just want to add a thing. Please train them how to use it, and please train them how to recycle that thing, because in a solar panel there are very very dangerous materials and elements which can be danger to the nature if they are not disposed correctly. So thank you.
Thanks. It's a very valid question, because the third pillar which he presented is actually environmental damage, and many of these things which we are doing for climate adaptation are also creating new set of problems for us. The question from there, these two, and then you. Yeah. Can we have the mic, please? Yeah. Oh, have this. Go ahead.
My question is to you. What I was trying to understand, like these vulnerabilities, like and the gender inclusion part, what I feel through my experiences as a development professional and my entrepreneurship life, that is like mental health is a genuine problem in these such disaster prone areas, because the violence comes with lots of burdens. It is multiple burdens for women. At the same time, when we are excluding the male counterpart, it is becoming terrible as a kind of outcome and horrible situation for the entire community. So I think disaster comes with lots of tolls, mental health hazards. So rehabilitation process, we have to think about and map about mental health issues very clearly, and for a rehabilitation process, not only giving them some support, assistance, how they can actually cope with and how they can actually make the community work.
I think a very valid question, and now most of the aiding agencies are actually focusing on a lot of grants for mental health, because that's the major impact. Maybe this side, both the gentlemen here and also ma'am there at the back.
Hello, my question is to the people who joined, especially who's from Matarbari. So আমরা যখন কথা বলছিলাম যে আমরা লাইভলিহুড হারাচ্ছি কিংবা ল্যান্ড হারাচ্ছি। আমার প্রশ্নটা ওনাদের কাছে এরকম যে এটা কি আমাদের মেগা প্রজেক্টগুলো হচ্ছে সেটার সমস্যা, মানে আমরা আমাদের সরকারকে কি বলতে চাচ্ছি যে মেগা প্রজেক্ট করিও না, তা করলে আমরা আমাদের ল্যান্ড হারাচ্ছি, ওর আমরা আমাদের সরকারকে বলতে চাচ্ছি যে মেগা প্রজেক্ট হওয়ার কারণে আমরা যে লাইভলিহুড হারাচ্ছি সেটাকে কিভাবে কাজ করা যায়। আমরা মেগা প্রজেক্টগুলোকে কিভাবে দেখছি, আমরা যখন অ্যাডভোকেসি করব গভর্নমেন্টের কাছে মেগা প্রজেক্টগুলো নিয়ে কিভাবে অ্যাডভোকেসি করব, ইজ ইট গুড অর ইজ ইট ব্যাড?
Million worth question, billion worth question. And I mean, I really feel tempted to answer in Hindi, but I should not.
হ্যাঁ, হ্যালো,
Go ahead.
আমার নাম রায়হান, আমি যমুনা টিভিতে কাজ করি। আমি জাস্ট একটা প্রশ্ন আবুল কালাম সাহেবের কাছে করতে চাই। হতে পারে, মনে হতে পারে যে একটু টাফ, রাফ, কিন্তু প্রশ্নটা হচ্ছে এরকম যে আপনি যখন বলছেন যে একটা কিছু অঞ্চলের মানুষকে আপনি অল্টারনেটিভ মানে রিনিউয়েবল এনার্জির জন্য তাকে আপনি সোলার প্যানেল দিচ্ছেন, তারপরে তাকে আপনি সোলার এনার্জি রিলেটেড ইয়ে দিচ্ছেন, কি বলে এটাকে, সুইং মেশিন দিচ্ছেন, নানান রকম জিনিস দিচ্ছেন। কখনো কি এরকম মনে হয়েছে কিনা যে এগুলো আসলে পরবর্তীতে ইলেকট্রনিক ওয়েস্টে পরিণত হবে এবং তার অল্টারনেটিভ কোনো কিছু আপনারা ভাবছেন, মানে সাস্টেনেবিলিটি বলছি আমরা বারবার, তাই না? কিন্তু আমরা আসলে নতুনভাবে আরও ওয়েস্ট তৈরি করছি। আপনার কাছে
Valid, very valid point, and I think resonating with the first question here. This, can you please give the mic to this gentleman, and I'm closing the question now, so that
Thank you
we
so
can
much.
have. We are already
Myself
5
Fayad,
minutes above.
I work for Helpers International. So my question is to Miss Margia. The thing is, despite having all the acquisition to the men, to sort of depriving the women, and all the things are
Can you keep the mouth mic closer to your mouth?
yeah,
Sorry.
thank you so much. So the question is actually, we know the deprivation that the women have due to the water scarcity, water salinity, and so on. And we have seen throughout the wonderful presentation presented by the presenters. But as we are always saying about how the men are somehow, how to say, are conducting sort of deprivation to the women. But side by side, I have witnessed that in the coastal area, men are also engaging themselves for the water collections as well in current days. They use their bicycle, they carry the water from far away from their households. So in your research, did you ask them that why these men are now engaging themselves for collecting the water from far away, and why? And as well as, if so, how this engagement of male are changing the role of women, because now they are getting more time to potentially use for their other purposes, right? So how this is contributing to women empowerment?
Valid
and so on.
question, valid
Thanks so much.
question, and I think, but in your question, you already put a bias within your question, like any research for that matter, because research is always done with a lens. So it is quite likely, but you are also linking that if men are doing that, that is giving more time to women, and when women studies are done, it's done just the other way. So just a little humor towards the end. So Abul sir, would you like to take the answer? Yes, I think your final words and.
Okay. They're standing someone. I think she can get.
আসসালামু আলাইকুম, আমি সুমাইয়া, সোনারগাঁ ইউনিভার্সিটির একজন স্টুডেন্ট। স্যার, আপনার পরিকল্পনার কথা শুনে আমার খুব ভালো লেগেছে, কারণ এমন গ্রামে দেখা গেল যে অর্থনৈতিক প্রবলেমের জন্য অনেক মহিলারা ঘরে বন্দি থাকে, যা হচ্ছে তারা তাদের হাজব্যান্ডের দ্বারা প্রতিনিয়ত টর্চার হয় যে আমাকে কিছু টাকা দাও, আমার এইটা দরকার ওইটা দরকার, কিন্তু এটা চাইতে পারে না। কিন্তু আপনার এই প্ল্যানিংয়ের কথা শুনে আমার সত্যিই খুব ভালো লাগছে, যে আমিও চাই যে আমার গ্রামের মহিলারা আমার চোখে দেখা যেভাবে টর্চারিত হচ্ছে দিনের পর দিন, আমি চাই যে তারা এইভাবে কাজ করে যেন এইভাবে মানে স্বামীর কাছে হাত পাততে না হয় আর এইভাবে টর্চার না হতে হয়। সো স্যার, এইখানে হচ্ছে আমার একটা প্রশ্ন, যে আপনি যে এই পরিকল্পনাটা করেছেন সেটা কয়টি জায়গায় মানে এখনো পর্যন্ত প্রতিষ্ঠিত হয়েছে, বা আপনার এটা নিয়ে প্ল্যান কি? মানে বাংলাদেশে যে সব জায়গায় যেখানে সবচেয়ে বেশি আর্থিক প্রবলেম হচ্ছে যে এই অঞ্চলগুলোতে, ওইখানে কি আপনি এগুলো প্রতিষ্ঠিত করার কোনো প্ল্যান করেছেন কি না?
Thank you. Thank you. Very important questions from all the questionnaire. So first question about the measurement for environmental issue related to renewable energy. আমি প্রথমেই বলি যে আমরা এন্টি ডেভেলপমেন্ট কোনো চিন্তার জায়গা থেকে কথা বলছি না। আমরা উন্নয়নকে আরও স্বচ্ছ, আরও জনঘনিষ্ঠ, পরিবেশ বান্ধব করতে চাই, সেই জায়গা থেকে আমরা আসলে কথা বলছি। আমরা যে সোলার প্যানেলগুলো দিচ্ছি এগুলোর ওয়েস্ট ম্যানেজমেন্ট নিয়ে আমাদের প্ল্যান আছে। তাদেরকে আলাদাভাবে ট্রেন্ড আপ করা হচ্ছে কমিউনিটিকে, তারা এটা কেমন করে ইউজ করবে, আরও ইফেক্টিভলি কেমন করে ইউজ করবে এবং কেমন করে তারা এটার ওয়েস্ট ম্যানেজ করবে, এই সমস্ত বিষয়গুলো এইটার একটা প্যাকেজ আকারেই তাদেরকে দেয়া হয়, অর্থাৎ প্রথম থেকেই তাদেরকে সেইভাবে দেয়া হয়। এবং একটা তথ্য আপনাদেরকে দেই যে রিনিউয়েবল বা সোলার এনার্জির তুলনায় কোল পাওয়ারের যদি আপনি কম্পেয়ার করেন তাহলে কার্বন এমিশনের দিক থেকে এটা 400:1। সো যদি কোল থেকে 400 ইউনিট এমিশন হয় তাহলে রিনিউয়েবল থেকে বা সোলার থেকে সেটা হবে 1 ইউনিট। সো কম্পেয়ার টু এমিশন দিয়ে যদি আপনি দেখেন তাহলে রিনিউয়েবলের মানে পটেনশিয়াল হিউজ ফর এনভায়রনমেন্ট। অ্যান্ড দ্য আদার কোয়েশ্চেন দ্যাট এটা কিভাবে আসলে মানুষকে সাপোর্ট দিচ্ছে, এইটা আমরা বলছি যে ডিসেন্ট্রালাইজ ইলেকট্রিসিটি। বিদ্যুতের জন্য তার কারোর দিকে তাকিয়ে থাকতে হবে না, সে নিজে বিদ্যুৎ জেনারেট করবে, সে নিজে বিদ্যুৎ ব্যবহার করবে। এই মডালিটিসটা আমরা তৈরি করছি কমিউনিটিতে এবং আমরা অনেকগুলো এলাকায় অলরেডি করছি। এবং সবচাইতে গুরুত্বপূর্ণ যেটা যে সরকার আমাদের এই মডেলগুলোকে ভীষণ পছন্দ করছে এবং তারা আমাদের কাছে এই মডেলগুলো চাচ্ছে। আমরা অলরেডি গতকালই আমি একটা অনেক মানে বড় স্কেলের একটা প্রপোজাল তাদেরকে দিয়েছি, তারা আমাদের কাছে আহ্বান করেছিল। সো আমরা আশা করি গভর্নমেন্ট এই ধরনের মডেলগুলোকে অ্যাডপ্ট করবেন এবং সারা দেশব্যাপী রিনিউয়েবল এনার্জি বিশেষ করে সোলার পপুলার করার ক্ষেত্রে আমাদের এই মডেলগুলো খুবই অগ্রণী ভূমিকা পালন করছে। এবং নারীরা বিশেষত এই মডেলের মূল উপকারভোগী হচ্ছে নারীরা, এটার ইউজার হচ্ছে নারীরা। আমি যে ইনকিউবেটরের কথা বললাম এখানে 100% উদ্যোক্তা হচ্ছেন নারী। সো এটা অসাধারণ একটা ব্যাপার। এবং আপনি যে প্রশ্নটা করেছিলেন যে আমরা আসলে কি বলবো, আমি প্রশ্নের উত্তর আগেই বলে গেছি যে আসলে আমরা চাই এটা আরো অ্যাকাউন্টেবল হোক, প্ল্যানিংটা আরো ইনক্লুসিভ প্ল্যান করা হোক, যাতে ল্যান্ড অ্যাকুইজিশন করতে গিয়ে আমি যে ডিসপ্লেসমেন্ট করছি বা লাইভলিহুডকে ওখান থেকে ডিসপ্লেস করছি সেটা যাতে না হয়, অর্থাৎ তাকে যাতে কাছাকাছি ধরনের, হুবহু না হলেও কাছাকাছি ধরনের একটা পুনর্বাসনের ব্যবস্থা করা হয়। আমি সর্বশেষ আপনার কাছে আসবো, যেটা খুবই গুরুত্বপূর্ণ ব্যাপার, খুবই, এবং এটা আমি যখনই এই ধরনের এলাকাগুলোতে যাই তখনই এটা ভাবি, তাদের যে ট্রমা এটাকে আমরা রিকভার কেমন করে করব এবং যে আনসার্টেনিটির মধ্যে তারা বসবাস করে এটা কল্পনা করা যায় না। এবং এইটা নিয়ে আসলে আমাদের কাজ করা দরকার। এটা নিয়ে আমরা কিভাবে কাজ করি আমি আপনার সাথে এটা নিয়ে পরে আলাপ করব। আমরা কিছু কিছু জায়গায় অলরেডি এই কাজটা শুরু করেছি, কিন্তু আমি আপনার সাথে এটা নিয়ে আরো কথা বলতে চাই এবং কি করে আমরা এই জিনিসগুলোকে আরো ভালোভাবে অ্যাড্রেস করতে পারি সেটা নিয়ে আমরা একসাথে কাজ করারও হয়তো আমাদের সুযোগ তৈরি হতে পারে। ধন্যবাদ সবাইকে। আশা করি আমি সব প্রশ্নের উত্তর দিয়েছি। জি।
Our questions after this is outside the panel discussion, and I think that's how we have to go because most precious thing is time. So I really want to take this opportunity to thank Ashrfi, Noore, and Marzia and Abul sir for the session. We have to be more inclusive, and there's another panel to come. So please take care. And I'm going to summarize, but first, before thanking to all of you, I think whenever we are talking about inclusion in the development sector, as well as when we talk about resilience, I'm personally really biased, I must say, that gender has been at the center of inclusion and resilience talking. And I really encourage more and more women professionals to get into this sector again, to bring back that voice of the woman from the ground to raise this issue. And I think it's high time that we also talk about what men do and how men are also distressed, because then we are moving towards more gender sensitive society as well as more inclusive society. Because if we keep trumpeting more about women, again we are dividing the gap between men and women more. That's how I see it. And therefore we have to also learn the men to share the responsibilities. But if we don't study men, the thing is everything that we study is about men and for men and by men, and that is where women shoes have been carved out as women thing. But more and more training is required for men to in this sector, especially gender and climate change, because they are not studied that much, and women are studied a lot, so that way we are privileged, I must say. But then if we are studied much, we are also wanting to be heard and also wanting to be coming up with solution is not going to come unless men are hearing us. So this is a very good platform here where we are gender balanced. Let me tell you, when I go to most of the platforms talking about gender, it's all men sitting and women are listening. And when all women are talking, there are hardly any men in the hall. So that way I wish to congratulate this hall and people all here, that we are at least gender balance in this hall. So that's important, and thanks to ActionAid to bring that gender balance in this hall to talk about it, because unless we talk, water conversations are extremely important, and which is not happening. We are a minority in the city and country, by the way, in this hall. So if we are minority, how can we upscale all these projects? So one thing is women being a minority and marginalized, but water community itself is minority. So we have to really go out and find innovative ways to convey to people that there is a climate crisis. There is a gender violence which is based on climate crisis. So these things are not going across. We have all kinds of commercialization and advertisement for all things which are unenvironmental friendly. We do not have issues raised on our TVs, on our TikToks and Reels, which are real issues. Very few organizations are talking about it, one being ActionAid. So I mean, I really wish to invite Farah, which I have done informally, to her to raise a women chamber of commerce and industry, and actually establish the Water Resources Council, Climate Resources Council, because that can make most of the women professional more empowered. We empower one woman professional, that is equivalent to empowering 2,200 more women on the ground. So it's extremely important that we empower women professionals more in the country, and especially in a country like Bangladesh, where we are talking about it's one of the blessed country which has equal gender ratio, almost equal gender ratio. We are struggling with gender ratio in India, by the way. And we are even having the bigger disease of patriarchy than anywhere else in the world. So I feel privileged to be here to see how actually the gender gap and gender discourse can be done in a very healthy manner. I have never heard in any platform in India in such a rich presentation the way these two presenters did here. So much of learning. So bring the voice here, and I would love to see women doing male studies and men doing women studies, and that is going to be the change which we really want to see, and youth have to take that challenge. So please try to understand the other genders, and it's not, by the way, only two genders in this world. So that also we have to change, that gender study is not about women studies. It is kind of, we are so biased to talk about gender. We have more than 200 genders to look at. So we have to really talk about it. So let's talk about human beings, and of course women have those problems, but imagine those genders we don't even talk about. So I'm hoping in next year's session we have more open discussions also, and that water and other genders. So that will be an interesting panel. Thank you so much, all of you. Please take care.
and Environment, University of York. Also, Mr. So, looking forward to all your kind cooperation. Moving forward to the session Water, River, and Urban Resilience, Infrastructure, and Ecosystem.
She's in the UK.
Over to you, Faraba.
আচ্ছা আমরা আবার বসে যাই I know the last presentations were exciting. Can we try and bring your minds back to this room? Come back. Okay. So this is a session which is about, again, rivers, climate change, but we want to focus a little bit on urban resilience. Azad, I know you have lots to share. Can you come and sit here now for the next half an hour? আপা আজাদকে অ্যাকশন এডে পাওয়া যাবে, সো কার্ড দেওয়ার খুব একটা দরকার হবে না। অলরাইট, সো you know, we have been talking a lot since morning, and it seems to be we are looking at the rural areas, or we're looking at one part of the country, but all countries have a mixture of cities, peri-urban spaces, and then the rural spaces, and so on. So the discussion here is that are the urban spaces sensitive to climate change? Is urban planning happening with that sort of an understanding? Because if you look at Dhaka city, you'll often see we complain that our water bodies, rivers, have all been either encroached, built on it, and these were done in a haphazard manner, not necessarily in a planned manner. And no surprises there, because Dhaka city has a population of 20 million, which is the population of 3 or 4 countries in Europe put together. So where will people stay? And then we heard in the morning from Dr. Khalikuzaman about how the population ratio was like 1,200 people per square kilometer. So there are many rationales or reasons for this happening. But having said that, they are putting all of us in a vulnerable situation, because climate change is a reality, and therefore urban planning and sensitive planning to changes, whether it is about heat, because in 2023 we have seen temperatures roaring above any known experience in the last 100 years or so. I don't know beyond that. Then the lack of water, then the issues of pollution, air pollution, and then of course waste management. And there's so many issues. So how are they becoming sensitive? How will they help the future cities? So I think that's the kind of conversation, because when we want to talk about climate change and resilience, we need to understand those concepts and ideas. So I want to start with Professor Abul Kalam Azad. Kalam has been, he teaches at Jahangirnagar University, but he's also been very engaged with the Institute of Planning and planners. And in 2014, we ActionAid worked with the Institute of Planners because we were looking at safe cities. We were approaching the issue of cities from the perspective of safety, security for minorities, for gender inclusion, for women, girls. So that's how our relationship and the research happened. But I want to extend it beyond that. So over to you, Kalam. How do you see, and you're still continuing to do research and planning. So over to you. Yes, you're very welcome to take the dais.
Well, Honorable moderator and those who are here in front of me, and those who are online, joining online. So this invitation actually came by surprise just about a day ago. And in fact, I had no time at all to look into the matter and what actually you have been doing here for this international conference. However, I couldn't resist me to joining here because it also is important for the urban planners to have some stake in the discourse. As we know, the water is abundant in the world, and 75% of our we are having 75% water and only about 25% land. So the water is abundant. But again, this abundant water, only 2-3% we can drink from or we can use for domestic purposes. That includes the fresh water in our rivers, in our canals. But and Bangladesh is a lucky country, one of the luckiest countries to have good water sources. We are now in crisis of the water to use for our domestic purposes, for drinking purposes, both in the urban areas and in the rural areas. Because we have polluted ourselves, we have contaminated our water, and different ways we are in the process of doing the same, and we have been continuing doing the same. So water, not only good quality of water, availability of good quality of water is important for both rural areas and urban areas. We know that we get on water we get fishes and from our water, from the river and canals during the monsoon. If we cannot grow fishes in all our canals and rivers because of the contamination, and we know our industries is a major source of contamination. So having said that, urban areas are prone to the sort of sources of contamination. So again, we are contaminating, it's fine, but what we are doing it in our policies, in our legal measures, that's important also to look at. Why the water being polluted every day? Because we are not being able to put our legal measures on those who are polluting it. Well, some of the sources of contamination is outside our country. But within the country, what we are doing is not we are not doing the right things. So that's important. And in the urban areas, we know the water is a major problem now, especially in major cities. If we look at Dhaka, we know there is a serious water problem. In our poor areas, in our slums, we are having a problem of pure water every day. And why that is so? Because we cannot use the surface water which is available, but because of this contamination, we cannot use it. And who are the sufferers? The poor are the worst sufferer because they cannot spend much for the good quality of water. The rich somehow are managing to have the water for their purposes of use. And now different countries, as I can see, I just looked at a couple of articles which suggest that there are ways to manage water in a better way. We can think about that, how we can develop a process where we will be able to stop contaminating our water, polluting our water. So we have some policies and we have water acts which suggest that we can encourage participation of different sections and the different levels of the government in order to decide about the use of water. So there is a way out, and there are organizations in Bangladesh who are looking after it for domestic use, for navigation, and other uses of water. Now the responsibility lies on those organizations in Bangladesh largely. But again, we need to have a participatory approach where we all can talk about it, we can participate, we can be involved in the process of decision making. There is a major problem in our urban areas, because urban area is basically governed and development we take through using, say, master plan. So our Dhaka city has a master plan, because Rajyog is preparing the master plan. It's a development authority. Our cities are preparing master plan. Our Paurashabhas are preparing master plans. Although those are there are master plans, draft master plans for a large number of our municipalities and cities. Those are not again made legal because those are not gazetted. So we, through those master plans, the actions we could take is not being done, because the mayors and the elected representatives, the councillors, they cannot take decision, the legal measures. If someone is wrongly doing anything with the use of water. So we understand that we need documents, we need legal measures in order to keep our water safe and safe to use everywhere, not in urban areas only. Now, the master plans, how it is made. This has also a problem, which cannot take all actions, necessary actions, because the master plans are following certain major approaches. It cannot take into consideration the details of our cross section of the people or different areas, the type of treatment it requires. So the master plans also has problems. For example, say our slum areas or our fringe areas, we need say solution of the water problem. The availability of good quality of water is required. And now the master plans we are mentioning, in the master plan we are mentioning about the sources of water, about say canals, surface water, about underground water. We know that it is being depleted and it is going deeper and deeper. So we have a problem in the amount of water availability. And say for for a long period, we have been trying to have to use the surface water from our rivers, that is being delayed. Even the first one, which was to come in Hyderabad, is still being in the process of development. So we have such type of problem in for our urban areas. In the rural areas, again, the water is being depleted. The groundwater level is going deeper and deeper. We cannot use the surface water because during the dry season, the water sources are mostly contaminated. Our ponds are even not safe to use. So rural people are also having problems. And the areas where the arsenic or salinity is available, we are having a problem to use the water. So our coastal areas are prone to that. And in the coastal areas, the coastal cities are prone to that because the population concentration is in the urban areas. So an urban area comprises of different kinds of people. So there are poorest people, there are middle income, and very few are capable of having their own sources of water, which is safe to use. So the problem then is accumulated more in the urban areas, and especially in the large cities. So we need to have support to our legal system in order to keep our water safe. And then in the process of master planning, it is important to have the legal measure, that is, we have to have more measures necessary in the master plans in order to make the use of water available for every section of the communities. So in Dhaka, say, most of our water bodies are contaminated. We have we haven't have enough sources of good quality of surface water, and we have our groundwater depleted, and so there is a problem in the sources of water, that is in the availability of source water. So we need to look at that, and we need to have good steps in the preparation of the master plans. So I leave you here with, you may have questions related to it. I will answer those. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kalam. Yes, I'm sure there are questions, and you've highlighted about how master plans are developed and not implemented, or the Water Act, water policies have, again, are there but not implemented. So I won't take up time. I want to move on to Anika Hawk, who's Assistant Professor in Human Geography and Environment at the University of York. And it's been a pleasure partnering with York and working with Anika. So Anika, over to you. We are audible, I assume, but I can't hear you.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Brilliant, brilliant. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Farah, for inviting me to present in this session. It's good morning in my side, so I'm joining you today from Cambridge, England. So today I'll be talking about urban resilience and the social ecosystem in the global South cities. So when we talk about ecosystem, the focus is predominantly given to the physical ecosystem. We often completely miss the social aspects of ecosystem, which are often the most critical aspects, particularly when it comes to developing countries like ours, where the governance capacity is very limited to physically protect the land. So today I'll try to briefly highlight the importance of social ecosystem and its implication on urban resilience. As we all know that the world is urbanizing at a very fast pace, and by 2050, more than 70% of the world's population will be living in cities. And most of this urbanization will be happening in the global south, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa and Asia. And this urbanization is accompanied by growing proliferation of slums and squatters. This is Dhaka city, as we all know. More than 1 billion people globally are living in slums. The way the cities are urbanizing in the global south are breaking down the physical ecosystem with a negative impact, particularly on the poorer people who already have low or no access to urban infrastructure. Let me try to zoom into Dhaka city itself. Let me try to give you a overview of the implication of the deteriorating physical ecosystem, then I'll get into a social ecosystem. So Dhaka, as we all know, is one of the fastest growing megacities in the world. More than 2,000 people migrate to the city every day. So the city is urbanizing at a very fast pace. And to accommodate the growing numbers, the city is developing in a haphazard way, rightly Farah mentioned at the beginning of this session. Now the water bodies are being encroached to accommodate these growing numbers, and buildings are being constructed. Previously, the city used to naturally drain to the eastern side and then to the adjacent rivers. Now the east is mostly landfilled and developed. And the physical drainage system is largely inadequate. Only 38% of the city is covered with underground sewage system. The result is, even with a few hours of rain, the city is waterlogged. And also, the green areas are disappearing fast. The hard surfaces are increasing. And we are anyways, experiencing increased heat waves due to the changes in the climatic system. And now, with these less soft surfaces in the city and more hard surfaces which reflect heat, the heat impact is exacerbated. And the result is increased health risks due to the heat waves that we're experiencing. And these risks are particularly critical for the urban poor, who have very limited access to healthcare, live in areas with hardly any access to basic infrastructure, are working in informal sectors, or are on daily wages with limited or no safety nets, no job security whatsoever. So this is where we start realizing the implications of social ecosystem. The social ecosystem is built within the physical ecosystem, but goes beyond the physical attribute and includes the socio-political aspects. For example, as I mentioned earlier, access to urban governance, social safety nets, access to urban services, and so on and so forth. And these are multi-scalar systems with varied actors and factors at multiple levels, which are interacting in a dynamic way to construct this social ecosystem. Now, what is resilience? I see resilience across a spectrum, where at one end there is vulnerability and adaptation is somewhere in the middle, and in the other end is resilience. So it is a process through which you take adaptive measures to reduce your vulnerability, and through continuous effort after reaching that adaptive state, you achieve a system where you have the ability to anticipate, absorb, accommodate, or recover from the effects of a hazardous event in a timely and efficient manner. And that is the resilient state. When it comes to the urban poor in our country, in many instances, we are far from the resilient state, as we don't even have the prerequisites for adaptation. Now, let me try to give you a quick glimpse of one of the critical factors of social ecosystem in the Global South cities. So we conducted longitudinal studies in Global South cities to understand the adaptation system to climate risks, to understand the implication of social ecosystem for the urban poor. These diagrams shows the adaptation system of urban poor, only representing the primary influencing factors for the adaptation processes and how those factors interact with each other and influences the overall system. We identified that social capital is one such factor, lack of which increases the vulnerability of the urban poor, and presence of which can positively influence the adaptation process. So social capital is a crucial element of the social ecosystem framework, which promotes societal collaboration to address common goals. This is particularly crucial factor for the urban poor as understood in relevance to urban resilience because of the lack of macro level support. We also identified that a vulnerability and poverty loop is created within the system, and social capital is one possible way to break this negative reinforcing cycle. It is particularly crucial for women where there are already, pre-existing sociocultural norms which adds to the vulnerability. It is more complex than it is shown in this diagram. There is a process through which social capital is built. Lack of consideration of citizenship rights of the urban poor, let alone women, breaks the social ecosystem. And most of the low-income settlements in the city are not acknowledged. I'm particularly talking about Dhaka city here. And that means that they are deprived of even the basic infrastructure. Majority of this population are engaged in informal economy, living on daily wages, without any social safety nets. When the climate migrants move to the city, from their previous locations, their previous social capital is broken, and hardly any new social capital is created, as there is a time poverty loop created through the lack of access to basic infrastructure, need for more income to survive in the city. For women, there is added care responsibility. So there is no time to build a social network which can lead to social capital. So there is a complex interplay of multiple factors. Those are structurally producing a situation which breaks down the social ecosystem. Now, there are many good examples from Dhaka city itself, where based on social capital within the communities have work together, address their vulnerability to climate risks, adapt to it, and in many cases paved the way towards resilience, often with limited external support. So I'm showing an image from one of the community-based organizations in Dhaka East, which used to be flooded every year during monsoon, and there was no macro level government support because those part of the Dhaka city used to be outside municipal corporation. Now it is included within the municipal corporation. So there was no macro level support. So they themselves, with the help of international NGOs, created the underground drainage system for themselves. So promoting to build the social ecosystem will allow them to find the solution by themselves. It may not be necessary that they will rely on the macro level organizations to provide all necessary infrastructure to them. Now, how to promote social ecosystem in global south cities? We have to acknowledge that there is no thumb rule or no one shirt fits all. However, there are few basic steps to start with. So it starts with, firstly, acknowledging the importance of social ecosystem for urban resilience. We need to widen our understanding and the focus. The macro level climate adaptation processes are largely focusing on physical infrastructure without hardly any acknowledgement and consideration for the social infrastructure and social ecosystem. These needs to be taken into consideration. A. B, the citizenship right of the urban poor needs to be acknowledged and implemented, providing them access to the, a basic infrastructure, social safety nets. Moreover, access to urban governance system is crucial. Basically, considering them as full citizen of the city is something that we need to address. And last but not the least, promoting community-based organizations is very crucial, making the registration process easier. With a formal community-based organization in place, allows the communities to access outside sources and funds and build, a resilient community by themselves. I'll stop here because we have limited time for discussion, and we can have further discussions during the Q&A session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anika. Very interesting presentation, and yes, I can relate to a lot of it. And I could see this the thread from what Professor Azad was talking about, participatory master planning and inclusion, and then you give us the example of what's happening in Dhaka city. I would now like to move to Sharif Jamil, and who's known to us all as an activist. He has been working for the environmental rights and justice for a long time. So, Sharif, you've heard the two conversations, and I know you had prepared on urbanization and ecocide. So, you're also coming from the social ecosystem and from human aspects of it, isn't it? Because you have called your presentation ecocide, which is something to do with mental health and suicide. So, over to you. And all of those of you who have questions, please write it down. We will take them together because we are now competing with time.
Thank you so much, Apa. First of all, hello and salam to everyone, and I feel very sorry for not being able to come in person. I'm really missing all of you, and I can see how beautiful conference you are all having there. So please bear me with this virtual presentation. I have prepared some slides to guide my, speech to be limited to the allocated time. So, am I able to share the presentation?
Yes,
Is it
colleagues, is it on?
Okay. Yeah. Is it visible now? Apa?
Sorry. It's a lovely picture of old Dhaka on the river. Ji, please go ahead.
Ji, Apa.
You can't see the
And
slide?
also-
No. Sharif, can you see the slide?
Yes, I can see.
Okay, go ahead.
Play from start.
Next slide. Na apni bolben.
No, this is the first one. I just make it bigger, as everybody can see it. Okay, Appa rightly said, my topic, I decided to expose the ecocide we have been doing. But while I was doing the presentation, I decided to make it more, easier for everybody to understand what I am going to say. That is, I will try to underscore my discussion on degradation of the river, water, and climate in Bangladesh, which actually is shrinking our space for the resilience. We are discussing about resilience, but I don't know how much resilience we can develop with the realities around us. As for example, my house in 60 years got inundated this year, and it's not flood, it's all waterlogged. Newly areas are getting waterlogged newly. So I will try to discuss about the destruction to the ecosystem we have been doing over the course of time. But before I go there, let's see how Bangladesh actually formed, or Indian subcontinent came up. 120 million years ago, there was no Indian subcontinent. There was Gondwana and all were together, but Indian plate started its northward journey about 12 crore years ago. And 5 million years ago, there was a collision between Indian plate and Eurasian plate that actually created Himalayan range and also created the Bengal fan. And still now, the Bengal fan is the world's largest subaqueous sediment storage place. So Bangladesh is actually made by a big natural event happened 5 million years ago. And then gradually from the Tibetan plateau, there are river systems coming up, and those rivers actually are carrying sedimentations, and the siltations made Bangladesh Delta. If you see this slide, you can see how Bangladesh is actually influenced by the river systems. We have 3 major river systems actually. Kornofuli is very insignificant and small in the Chittagong Hill Tract area, but the entire country is dependent on 3 major river systems, which are Ganges Padma, Brahmaputra, and Barak Meghna. And if you see, the rivers in this country are like gnats. And how many rivers we have, the number is still controversial. There are more than 1100 names. We found that the river should be more than 1100, but the government agencies are coming up with controversial figures that started from 230 to 700 and so. But the real thing we need to understand is Bangladesh is highly dependent on the natural ecosystem in terms of its urbanization, human settlement, and every other aspects, including culture, heritage, economic growth, whatever you say. So when the environmental disaster comes here or environmental pollution and degradation happens, as you already heard from the other speakers, how densely populated country it is, so it creates actually humanitarian catastrophe. That's why the topic we are discussing today is very important for everyone in this country. Let me jump directly to the urbanization in Dhaka. We have discussed so many things, and the previous speakers also came up with some very true figures and information. But here I want to show you how the urbanization took place in Dhaka. We all know it's about 300 to 400 years ago the urbanization started based on the river Buriganga, and then it started expansion towards the northern part of Dhaka. And if you see the black part here, that is the pre-Mughal era, and then that much of human settlement started based on the Buriganga. And then during Mughal, the golden part actually expanded, and then British period, the red part came up, and in Pakistan period, the white part. But when Bangladesh got independence, it started expanding like anything. Initially, Dhaka was chosen to be urbanized or human settlement because of the unique architecture. You can see it's surrounded by 4 rivers, connected by number of canals. There are still controversy about the numbers, but there are about 46 or 45 canals still identifiable. So Dhaka was actually a network of canals and rivers, but protected by 4 major rivers. We did not able to do the urbanization planfully, and the previous speaker was discussing about the plans and projects we have in terms of urbanizing Dhaka. Recently, the detailed area plan came up, but still, detailed area plan, I mean, like when you are going to form any policy, when you are going to form any plan, then the mindset is important, how we want our city to grow. As for example, we were discussing about the waterlogged realities, we were discussing about the river encroachments, but I think personally, the major degradation to the rivers around Dhaka happened due to faulty installation of demarcation pillars. But when in 2009, High Court came up with the verdict to demarcate the rivers, actually the intention was to protect the river areas. And the verdict itself was very clearly mentioning about the river area should be having 3 major parts of it. One is riverbed, one is foreshore, one is the riverbank. And where the riverbank is not existing and the river mixed with the floodplain, there the floodplain should be also integral part of the river. And all these 4 parts, as I said, protected by the legal systems. It's not like recently it's protected from the time memorial. And if you see the State Acquisition and Tenancy Act of 1950s, it's also recognizing these 3 or 4 parts of a river system. If you see the Port Act 1966, that also protecting that 4 parts of the river systems. And eventually in 2009, High Court also said how to demarcate the river area. But government did not demarcate it in a proper way as the court and the legal systems were advising. So the demarcation pillars were all faulty, and they were putting up all these demarcation pillars in the riverbed area during the lean period. So entire foreshore, entire floodplain, entire riverbank are now already gone under the grabbers. And the detailed area plan came up with some reforms where they are actually legalizing all those encroachments. As for example, when the first detailed area plan came up in 2010, it was protecting the floodplains. It was discussing about the retention ponds to be protected. But when the latest one came up, they changed the term and they don't say floodplain anymore. They say mixed area. And by saying this, they are also allowing the encroacher to apply for change the classification of the land area. So government's intention is to aggravate the situation. Government's intention is not to protect the city from the climate catastrophe or environmental catastrophe, whatever we are discussing about. As for example, in Dhaka, we have been listening it for last 10 years that every year more than 10 lakh people are being climate migrants, and out of them 4 lakhs are coming to Dhaka. It's old data. I think it requires some more study to identify how many people are actually going to be climate migrant these days, and how much are development migrants. But the real thing is that climate migrants all are coming here to work in the garments industries, in the tannery industries, and living in the slums. So there are no protection for them. There are no policies for them. There is no pro-people, pro-environment, and pro-sustainable designs and planning going on in case of Dhaka. I don't want to tell in detail. The time is not actually
Yes,
enough,
I was just
but
going to come back to you. Can you wrap it up in 1 minute?
1 minute is too short, but I will try to do that, Appa. So Dhaka's air is polluted, Dhaka's water is polluted, as I said, Dhaka's everything is as a mess. And the groundwater depletion was mentioned by the other speaker. You see, the minister was telling it's 2 to 3 meter in every year. And in the district level, I will finish in like 30-40 seconds. I wanted to show one example of one district town. You see the left drone picture. It's a photo of a river. It calls Kwai River. It's like enclosed by government entities and people, where the city is waterlogged by 1 hour of rain. You can see. And groundwater depletion, it is also everywhere in the district towns. So and I would like to conclude here saying the development plans government is going forward with is actually again the suicidal dirty industrializations are coming up, filling up the agricultural land, and people are losing their livelihood. I would be stopping here, but before I stop, I must say we have to change the mindset before we make our plans and projects to sustain our country and cities. Thank you, Appa.
Thank you so much. I think all three speakers, you could see the thread. They were all talking about climate change, displacement, migration, urbanization, slumization, and lack of access. I think Anika put it in a very strong manner about if you are recognized as a full citizen, then your entitlements, then also how our development and growth are not necessarily in sync with people-centric approaches. Anyway, any questions to any of the speakers? Yes?
My question is to Sharif Jamil Bhai. So Bangladesh actually asked for a ecocide law for environmental protection, but at the same time we can actually say that Rampal is an ecocide project because it's actually destroying our Sundarban, our rivers. So why do you think actually government is in one side asking for a law and in other side doing exactly the same thing?
Question. We'll come to the speaker. Any more? Yes, here in front of you.
I just was also thinking about ponds because you mentioned about Dhaka city being having many canals, but also there are lots of ponds. There were lots of ponds, and you mentioned about low-lying areas which are also being filled up. So basically, and the observation is that it's a problem of governance, as everything boils down to it ultimately, and the corruption and the nexus between developers and the law enforcement. I mean, the people who would enforce or regulate the use of land. So I was just wondering whether there's any like study on the ponds, how many ponds there were, how many of them were filled up, etc.
One more question.
Thank you, sir, for all of the beautiful presentation. Actually, I have a question to the sir. That you are asking about the master plan. You are talking about the master plans of our country. So I have the question that in the rainy season we see that in Dhaka city most of the places are being submerged into water. So whether is there any reason of this submerging any master plan, or whether there are any plans to overcome this situation? First question. And second question is that are the people to blame? We liable for this all the problem of which are
Okay, I
happening?
think we get the question. Kalam.
Thank you, sir.
Then I'll come to Sharif.
Well, thank you. Very pertinent questions. I think she has a question on number of ponds and canals. We know about canals, that there are many canals. We can see it in the media, in the on the newspaper. But about ponds, I know from one study a couple of years back, the Asiatic Society had a good seminar. So experts from Delhi, Kolkata, and also there was a study on Rajshahi, Kumilla, probably Dhaka. There are thousands and thousands of ponds actually. There were here in Kumilla, in Rajshahi, even those came from a study by people in Calcutta city. Somebody from Calcutta city. So I was surprised even that we hadn't any study on those, the availability of the ponds in the past in our cities. But I know from my experience in 1975-96, when it came for admission into Jahangirnagar University, I was for a couple of days in Old Dhaka. I found a lot of ponds there. All being filled up now, yes, that's right, yeah. And for your question, obviously the answer is clear. We have some measures in the master plan, but the problem is the people from the private sector, individual, we are also responsible for destroying our water bodies, polluting our water bodies. Our industrialists, the rich people are more to blame for that. But the government failure is that the law should speak in order to control the measures. And here I have found a problem that between Rajuk and the local governments, the urban local governments, the city, the municipalities, the union, the ward councils, they are not actually doing their job right. Here, that's why there is an emphasis from, I see that from an African study, they put importance on the scale of intervention. So we need to intervene in the right way so that we can involve everybody in the process. The government, the private sector, the individuals, everybody. Thank you.
And as to are we to blame? Well, you have to dig deep and see how we are also to blame because of our behavior. Anika, on urban settlement, urban issues, then I'll come to, because The other question is more related to ecocide and law and government behavior.
Yeah, thank you, Farapa. Thanks for the wonderful questions. These are all really important questions to ask, actually. I just want to highlight two crucial components. One, already Sir identified about the governance issues. He mentioned about multiple agencies involved in this process of urban development and particularly for Dhaka City. The point I want to raise here is the lack of coordination, because like when it comes to the overlapping risks of climate change and urbanization, there are multiple agencies involved and they are working in silence. So a coordination is something that is required urgently here, number one. Number two is we might have some of the best policies in paper, but still we can experience the vulnerability, right? We are experiencing the hazards, the risks. So there has to be a massive gap between policy and practice. So we need to focus on that gap and trying to identify how we can implement policies the best way possible. So these are the 2 points I want to kind of focus on. Over to you, Sharif Bhai.
Thank you, Anikappa. Farapa, may I go? Yeah.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
So, yes, one question was how many ponds we have or related to pond. I was mentioning about the retention pond. Pond is part of the retention pond. But yes, Dhaka city was called for a city of ponds and mosque. And the fisheries department reported more than 200 names of ponds. So we can say more than 200 ponds are recorded in the government departments. But still, we don't have ponds. We are filling up ponds and making infrastructure. So nothing more on that. Regarding ecocide law, I don't personally think we need any more legal framework to protect our ecology and environment. We have enough legal frameworks. We don't follow them. There is no implementation. Rather, these are all ill implementation. You mean like when the policies and practices and projects are going to the implementation level, these are all coming adverse. I will conclude here saying one example, which is she mentioned about Rampal power plant, and Rampal is hurting the Sundarbans. It's a global heritage, UNESCO World Heritage Site, and UNESCO over and again requested Bangladesh government to do strategic environmental assessment for the southwest region of the country, including the Sundarbans, where government has an opportunity to identify the loopholes to protect the Sundarban and to improve their development plans. But the mindset was not to protect, and that's why government did not do this properly. Even when they were considering the southwest region of the country, they even cut the ecological critical area of the Sundarbans. So the intention is not to do the SEA properly, while the SEA would be actually helping the government. So when you are forming the legal frameworks are coming up to protect the ecology, to protect the rights of the people. But if you do not want to protect the rights of the people, then one legal framework will create another opportunity of corruption. That is what I understand. We need good governance, and accountability mechanism to be functional. And to do that, we need inclusion of people in the policy formation and implementation levels. That my understanding is like that. Appa, over to you.
Sure. I would like to mention the measures in the Delta Plan. So we have a Delta Plan as an umbrella plan. So we need to follow the directives of the Delta Plan also while we are making other laws, rules, or we are practicing different for different regions. So we need to follow our, say, 5-year plan, our Delta Plan, perspective plan, taking into account the development should go, the governance should go in a right track. Thank you.
Now, here I want to supplement Ajad Bhai, which is we did a 2-day conference on Delta Plan 2100. So we studied it, we discussed about it. Delta Plan sounds like a very, very nice thing.
It's a
but
visionary
if you go
plan.
inside Delta Plan, If you go inside Delta Plan, there is no discussion about transboundary water bodies and water sharing. How come you protect a lowest riparian delta without discussing about transboundary water issue? And also, 123 old projects came up under Delta Plan, and now they are going forward with 80 of them. None of them organically came up from Delta Plan 2100. So my question is whether the mindset is to protect the delta. If you alter the delta character with the projects came up under the Delta Plan, cordon, commercial, bouldering, and embankments, then it's all adverse to the essence of the policy. So I am stick to my position, which is we need change our mindset.
Absolutely. And I think by changing our mindset, we are talking about adapting and being adaptable, right? As I am adapting at this point, because the moderator of the next session, Fida Khan, unfortunately fell sick and he's not there, so you have no choice, you're stuck with me. But the next session actually is about solutions. Thank you, Azad. But you can please stay. I mean, Anika, Sharif, if you want to stay online. The next session is more
As panelists, we have Sheikh Rokun, Secretary General, Riverine People, Professor Dr. Kamruddin Noor, Department of Computer Science, American International University, Bangladesh. We have Professor Dr. MD Abdul Awal Khan, Department of Law, Independent University, Bangladesh. And we have Mr. Tanzir Hassan, Global Resilience Advisor, iHeart, ActionAid International. Over to you, Appa.
speakers and panelists for joining us and being part of our 9th International Water Conference. I don't know if you've been following, but all day we have been talking about river and water and resilience. So, Rokon, you have come up with a 4R approach to ensure the rights of the rivers. Do you have a presentation or you want to say? Would you like to go there? Okay. Over to you. As Rokon gets started, if you want to bring your tea, please do, but please don't keep going in and out during the presentation. I think that's disrespectful to the presenter. So if you want to bring your teas, please do, but once you've got it, don't get up and go again.
Okay, I think if anyone can help me to operate it to the next slides. আপনার কাছে রাখলেই হবে আপনি ওখানে বসে নো না না ঠিক আছে প্রথমটা আর আরেক Okay, thank you. Thanks, Appa, for giving me the opportunity to stand here and talk to you. With ActionAid, I can say that my activism life has been grown up with Action 8 for long. So it's always very happy moment to be here or there with Action 8. I'm talking about 4R approach to ensure the rights of river. It's nothing like any academic article or any theory, nahi tattva, nahi upadesh. It's just we have composed it from our experiences of working as an activist with rivers. The 4R approach, I would like to request to the next slide to go. To our experience and observation, rivers of Bangladesh at least have 4 basic rights. If we can ensure that 4 basic rights, the health and hegemony of the river will be better, we think. So the first one is rights to run freely. We all know that a river is become and be healthy when it can run freely. The photo, I have put it here. In fact, we both were for a jogging or running in the morning, kind of. It's in Faridpur area, and that road is just across the Bhubaneswar River. It's a ancient river in Faridpur and Borishal region, but now it is just sliced in many lakes or even ponds. The road you are seeing is just a road across the river, and there is no bridge, no vent, no culvert. Just it's one of the examples of, I think, dozens of rivers in Bangladesh, across Bangladesh, have got that ill fate, that all are sliced and has become a rectangle, a pond or lake. So to our observation, the one of the basic rights of the river should be the run freely. So this is the 1R, and if a river can run freely, the other, we see the utilization of river, like in Bangladesh we have at least 6 utility of the river: the drinking water, domestic or industrial water, and inland water transportation. So if a river runs freely, that 3 utilization will be ensured, I think. And if you see, no running river or alive river, almost no running or alive river is encroached, because a running river, the encroacher, they keep away from the running river. If you will see the river which is dried and died out, that become the prey of the encroacher. So we said the rights to run freely, one of the rights of the river. And the second slide, rights to reproduce economically. We know the river have the utilization of fisheries and biodiversity. It has the potentiality of irrigation system, but if we call it production merely, they have the reverse consequences we have seen. Like river produces sand, and we are seeing the indiscriminate sand mining. But ideally, it should be the sands, the chore, the landmass immersed on the riverbed or bank. There should be irrigation, there should be production, and when a river have some chores, some coals, and free flow, they are the ideal for the fisheries. So I have taken this picture from a chor in Padda River, where two people, one is going for fishing and another is coming with the production from the chor area, the banana and other things. So the rights to reproduce economically, not only the production, river produces water, fisheries, but we need the reproduction so that the river can be used economically and the reproduction can benefit the society and state. And the third right, the next slide, right to risk reduction ecologically. When river become subject to erosion, pollution, and encroachment, there are many solutions which are sometimes engineering solution. We have seen it in Bangladesh since the 60s. There are dike, embankment, and other engineering solution. But we have to, and we should think about think ecologically. This is a picture of Bandal, which is Bandeling call in English, and it's a very traditional practices for thousands of years, especially on the Ganga and Jamuna basins. It is very effective to control the erosion, to keep the navigability of the river constant. So it is one of the ecological solution to risk reduction of the river. So this should be the third rights, one of the third rights of the river. And the fourth slide, this is rights to revitalize legally. It's a very interesting case. A river have the legal rights, but we always see it, these rights are demanded and concentrated to the encroachment or pollution, but there are other some rights of the river which is not usually discussed on the legal arena. We from riverine people, we call it the sucker fish syndrome. All the river around the Dhaka city, they have got the sucker fish which came for the aquarium from the foreign country, and then it has gone to the rivers of around the Dhaka city. And now last month I have seen a report that in the Jamuna, Kurigram district, there is a sucker fish also. They have got, so sucker fish is going across all the Bangladesh, across the rivers. And this guy, his name is Mohsin, he has collecting the sucker fish, and you see he is making food for the dog, cat, and the poultry. So this is the one of the examples how when river is encroached, polluted, and there is the species which is not good for the health of the river, they are going freely, then other problems arises. He doesn't know how the food is healthy for the fish, for the poultry, or for the cats, but he is selling it, and people is buying it for their poultry at least, and we don't know the consequences of health or health hazard to us who are consuming that poultry. So what I am going to say that this sucker fish syndrome proves that river needs some revitalization by legal guidance, because we have the laws, we know, but we have to practice this more closely, more segmentedly, and more effectively. So if river needs 4 rights that run freely and to reproduce economically, and it needs some legal revitalization or guidance. Next. So these are the 4 rights, and how we can ensure the 4 rights of the river. We think that's first rights is recounting the river, which is I would like to show a slide on the next. Recounting the river is very important. Sharif Bhai was telling that in the previous session that the authority had started recounting river by 2030. Now the latest figure is 1008. So to our understanding, it is not complete. We have many more hundreds of river in the country, and since we have no legal or practicing Shongar Ingreji ki definition, since we don't have the definition what is river, how it should be, so there are many rivers is left out, and this part is very important because we know that you will see the government documents. The Buriganga river is 29 kilometer long. It starts from Turak and falls on the Dhaleshwari, but this is not the case. Buriganga has another at least 16 kilometer long part which is ignored, forgotten, and wiped out from the government documents. We here are visiting that part of the Buriganga, so we need to recount the river. If we want to ensure the rights of the river, so it is very necessary to recount the river, because we have many rivers which are left out, which are forgotten, and which has no guide or guardians. So recounting the rivers is important. How many rivers we have and how are their condition. The second slide, please. Riparian recognition. If you see that map, how many basins we have in Bangladesh and around the Bangladesh, but riparian recognition is important with transboundary perspective as well as in internal perspective. Every river has its own own basin, and if we don't recognize the basin, the riparian rights of the river, that can be forgotten. There are some river, I can say that Chakiri Poshar river, it's in Kurigram district in Rajarhat, and the authority has declared it as a bill or wetland. So people are leasing, district commissioner is leasing it out and people is getting the lease. So recognition, riparian recognition of river is very important because...
Sorry, Rokun, but how much longer? Because we have 4 speakers on this.
2-3 minutes. Okay, fine.
Minutes.
So this is the and third slide. Okay, renewing the roles. We know that rivers has 4 or 5 roles. We always discussing about it. But river has very other important roles. Like this picture here is it is the Brahmaputra. We know the Brahmaputra river, but this is the idol of Brahmaputra, how Brahmaputra looks like. So there is a very strong cultural perspective of the river. If we start it from religion, we can start it from religion and to the daily life where river is important. So to ensure the rights of the river, renewing the roles is very important. Next slide, please. And the fourth one, river and community engagement. To our experience, we have seen that many higher people are not that interested to be engaged on the river restoration movement, and the question came to our mind when we can take a very small tiny road of the Union Parishad Road or Upazila Parishad Road. People never let it be encroached or let it be cut down, but when it's in the case of river, people are not that much inclined or very much indifferent about the cause of the river. So what is the problem? To our understanding and experience, the economic, ecological, and cultural bondage with the people is very important. We have to engage the riverine community to that causes. So this was our 4R approach to ensure the rights of river. Thank you.
Thank you, Rokun. The 4 Rs, very interesting. But at the center of it, you were talking about governance and law. So I'm going to come to Professor Mohammad Abdul Awal Khan, Department of Law at IUB, and sustainable water governance in Bangladesh, issues and challenges. This is late hours, so if you can be brief. Thank you so much. Because we have children waiting who will be performing. That's why I'm feeling a little uncomfortable.
Really. Thank you, everyone, and good afternoon. As I promised to our ma'am that I'll be very brief. So, of course. So, can you anyone open this PowerPoint slide for me, please? Okay. This is my profile. Yep, you can skip it. Oh, okay. This is the pointer. Click. Right. I can start talking. The focus of this presentation is particularly on sustainable water governance. And I'm actually from law background, and governance, you understand that it doesn't actually necessarily include law, but actually it requires some systematic arrangement or systematic management as well. So, but without law, no governance system is actually can run successfully or effectively. So the title I designed, that sustainable water governance in Bangladesh. As we know that our legal system, it has different objectives or different types of law we have, and also we have some particular laws in regard to water management or water governance or something. So there are some few challenges that we need to face for effective water governance. And actually when we start our day by taking shower, then actually then water governance system or water using of water actually starts from by beginning from our home. And that is a data that you can see that a 5-minute shower, it consumes 75 to 90 liters of water. And if we take 10-minute shower, then it would take around 240 liters of water in just 10 to 15 minutes. So you can imagine that how much water we use every day for our from daily life to our industrial or any kind of activities. And you know that the water covers 70% of Earth's surface, and unfortunately most of the 95-6% around is saline. So if we don't use our water sustainably, that it might create problem in the future, and in future we might not get water for our life. And you know that many countries, they are already facing this kind of trouble or this kind of issues. So the sustainable development goals that we have already through United Nations, we have also different target, and under target 6, that clean water and sanitation is one of the objectives. And actually what we understand by this kind of governance system or something, then we can see that we need to actually meet up, or we need to design some mechanism by which the different stakeholders, their demand can be fulfilled. For example, we have designated bodies or authorities. They have their mandate, or they have their demand that we need this amount of water for their industry running, or their our household activities or something. So we need to every day or every time, the management, or for example the governing bodies, they have to consider that how much water they need to supply. And if we don't use water systematically or effectively, then it might be a problem. Because you know that when you walk through any road from Dhaka city, you will find many places that you can see that a water tap is on and water is dropping, and nobody is caring. And this is like is a small example, and this example could be taken to in a larger scale, and that's why we need law and policies, so that not only we need to use water for our purposes, but we need to consume and we need to also use it in systematically. And to address water related challenges such as water scarcity, water degradation, water quality degradation, and also due to climate change, we have different kind of challenges. As my title actually focus, that I'll be focusing on different challenges, and within this 10 minutes time, so it's difficult to focus all of this. And also if we see that there is accountability, when we talk about governance, there must have some issues that we need to consider, that is transparency, accountability, and equity. And whenever we see that the scenario is like a metaphorical, a picture I put there, that we water for the we need for the people as well as for the plants as well. And the previous speaker, he said that rivers, they are now at the moment, rivers are considered as a living being, so it has its legal status, and this legal status of this river is recognized by our Supreme Court as well. So this water is no longer just simple water, but also it has become the rights of the people. They can claim as their basic rights. And when we argue water as a human rights, then some legal issues are also included. For example, if I don't get water, water actually means that safe and clean water. Even we say that this kind of water is not fit for drinking, but it should also be fit for sanitation purposes as well. So safe water is important. And you might have visited Singapore airport. You might have experienced that the Singapore, the country, they use different kind of water treatment plant by which they recycle the water from different sources. So we need to also our yes, even in Australia, everywhere they consider water as an asset. So they don't waste water. So it's kind of asset from the nature. So we need to use it systematically, and that's why we need law for strict governance, and as well as accountability, responsibility, equity. Equity is a very vague term and broad term, but due to time constraint, we need to equity issues is not, I'm not going to discuss, but we need to provide give access to water irrespective of any person or any discrimination or any facilities. So how much time I consumed? So I believe I have few minutes more. So there are few actors. Here you can see that regulatory body includes individual. We personally might act as an actor for water good governance. And yep. And this is the list of different laws. You can have a look. It is actually not comprehensive. Yeah. Yeah, it's fine. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yes, it's not comprehensive list, but there are few other laws, and this is the key institutional framework. I'm not going to mention all of this, but you can understand that we have a very strong institutional framework already. We have to manage and to govern water, but there are some issues that we need to face. That is whether those institutional government framework as well as legal and policy frameworks, they coordinately work together to manage water systematically or not. So that is one legislation I'd like to mention, that is Water Act. You all of you are aware about this law. Here, if you can see that this Water Act is one of the comprehensive laws so far we have, but there are few issues or few lackings of that law. I'd like to mention few of them. The first thing I'd like to mention is that the Water Act, it actually overlapped few other laws as well, which is enacted before 2013. So, but there is still coordination gap between Water Act, that means, and also Water Act doesn't actually say how to maintain the quality of the water and also how to ensure the water as a rights to the general people. And most importantly, you know that our female or women, they take if they stay at home and usually do the household work. So our women, they have huge responsibility to manage water. So in case of any good lawmaking process, usually the stakeholders people's opinions are heard. So in case of decision making process, if the people's voice are heard or people voice are listened, then we might get few other information or that important issues that could be used for good water governance. And this law, you can see that it is act, it is a parliamentary statutory law. It is it is mandatory for the government and the people as well. But I don't think that these obligations government, they will feel legally obliged to ensure water as their mandatory duty. And interestingly, Article 17 of the Constitution of Bangladesh, where you can see that the basic necessities of the people are maintained as a right to food, right to house, health, and other issues are maintained, but water is not mentioned in the Constitution. So right to life actually has been interpreted with water. So when we talk about right to life, then water must come. So water rights should be, I think, that it should be specifically, although it is not clearly mentioned in the Constitution, but there is opportunity to insert water as a constitutional rights of the people, although it has become the global rights. So there are some issues, and as madam says that I have consumed all of my time, and I promised that I will not talk, but there are few other challenges issues. You can have a look, and I give floor to my next presenter. Thank you for your kind patience.
Thank you. And it is absolute injustice towards you and your presentation. People have questions, they can always come to you, right? Now, I'm in a bit of a dilemma because we have one presentation on artificial intelligence and the other one is on climate, humanitarian, peace and development nexus. So, artificial intelligence at the end or artificial? Okay. What do you think? Because I know I'm open, but it's about. Okay, so I'll let you speak. All right, so it's over to you, Dr. Kamruddin Noor, who's going to make a artificial intelligence and computer vision on floods, flash floods, urban water logging. So from law to AI technology.
Okay, I will try. So very good afternoon, or shall I say good evening? It's in between. So I'm Professor Dr. Kamruddin Noor. I'm working at AIUB in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering. I'm a senior member of IEEE, member of ACM, those who are technical person they know, and I'm leading ubiquitous computing and human computer interaction lab at AIUB. There are a bunch of very good researchers who are working under me. So does it work? So would you mind if I switch there? No, I didn't skip anything. So this is the content, table of the content. So we'll be discussing why actually we do want to use AI. And few state-of-the-art technology that we can use, methodology, some of the things we can do, propose DDR, and sustainable policy making, very brief, short part. So I know that this part is not very visible, but can I move on to there if you allow me, permit me to go there, please? So see, only one newspaper I've been going through in last few days. So only Dhaka Tribune, I can see the catastrophes. This is very a common picture of Dhaka city, Chittagong, and the coastal areas. So it causes not only our money, it causes lives. People dies out of this. So definitely these are catastrophes. In very modern countries, I have seen this in New Zealand when I was a student in 2000, they use this kind of Dopplers, they use this kind of radar, they use electronic sensors to measure the water level, to predict whether there will be water overflow or not. But these are expensive, and our coastal area is really vast. So another inexpensive solution could be computer vision based solution. See, we have many cameras looking at us. They are capturing our photos and videos. We have CC camera everywhere. But if we can use these CC cameras intelligently, put artificial intelligence on the camera processor or in the cloud, we can predict all these calamities. This is the picture of Singapore. Laser works, by the way. Can I use it? Okay, this is the Singapore coastal area. So one camera is covering almost 3 to 5 kilometers of the coastal area. Very high performance camera. This is one camera from the Europe. What they do, they measure the water level during the rainy season of their canals. So this is the part. Can you see they have some little bit of indicators, how many feet of the depth of the water. But we can use this camera and find out the information, and real time we can provide alerts. So this is the beauty of computer science. If you are very interested, if you are want to go through what computer vision can do, I think you can definitely go through these links. So what are the solutions? There are many proposed solutions already existing. Some people, they believe LSTM is a good one. By the way, I'm really sorry. This is long short-term memory in artificial intelligence. I know most of you are non-technical and you don't want to know all this, but this is one of the solution. But the solution is not 100% accurate, so there are scope of improvements. What they do, they detect the flood and urban flood and coastal area, and then they mark it over the map. So we know that. So this is one of the primitive solution. But more hybrid approach could be latest state-of-the-art technologies they are being used. We can analyze the CC camera footage. I don't know if you know already, the DMP police has 3,000 camera networks. A lot of cameras in Dhaka city. There are cameras in coastal area also, but very few. So if we can put cameras over 2-3 kilometers apart, we can get footage, we can predict, we can send the alert, we can save lives, we can take actions. Then again, the accuracy of this approach is 90%, not still the 100%, but we need the 100% solution. There are more technique, for example, Arbor One, they are detecting the water level with the vehicle level and measuring if this level is threatening or not. If this is bad, it will send the alert to the municipal authority to take actions immediately. Then, what we can do, we can definitely do better than this. How? I have been talking with my research students and my research fellows. We do believe we can achieve almost 100% of the accuracy with the current latest technologies. But definitely, we need to develop the prototype, we need to test it, and we need to make sure that our solution is sustainable. So what we propose here, all the camera images, videos captured can be transmitted to a local or in the same time, both in the cloud, we process it, we can send alert. It could be either SMS or it could be even email based or any IP based solutions. So I wouldn't go in details. I know that this is not a technical, very technical session. So this part I'm skipping, but this part is the brain of the computer or artificial intelligence. It will make decision. It will tell what to do, what not to do. So policy making, I'm not very good, but my friend and my colleague, actually colleague in other university, Dr. Awal Khan, he is good at policy making, so we can take help from him in this regard. So I'm skipping this part. The conclusion is we use AI every day. Most of the time we use, for example, Google Maps. But unconsciously, we don't know how much AI is being used. We take photo, then put a filter on. We don't know how much AI we are using. But unfortunately, for the mass people, the AI is not being deployed. Unfortunately, we do not really encourage technology a lot. Unfortunately, we do not give fund for this kind of work. Very little seed money could help a lot. We can do field study, we can send our students or researchers on those areas, we can capture video footage, we can analyze, and we can propose a solution for everyone. Thank you so much for your time and attention.
Fascinating, and I'm sure we could learn a lot more if we had the opportunity. I'm sorry, we're not taking any questions. You can write your questions. I'll come to our last speaker. Tanzit. The resilience and rivers and waters. What dimension do you want to bring? Zakir Hussain is with ActionAid International. He's a global resilience advisor for what we call iHeart.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Well, 10 years ago, Professor Imtiaz made a comment which was really interesting. He came to a meeting and said, I don't have power and I don't make any points when I speak, so I don't use PowerPoint. Since then, I've been trying to use that when I don't use a PowerPoint. So yeah, there you go. Right, so solution, and I will try to be within the limit, even 7 minutes if possible. First of all, if we look at the title, Water, River and Climate Change, I think what we need to understand, climate change itself is not the only problem. And then we've heard the entire day of colleagues, experts talking about different challenges. What we see globally and what is the currently what we are talking about is a quadruple nexus, not just climate. What are those? Humanitarian, climate, conflict, and development nexus. First of all, we have to understand, doesn't matter where you are in Dhaka city, you are in Bangladesh, you are in the Horn of Africa, or in the midst of the conflict that's going on in Ukraine or Palestine. These problem challenges exist everywhere, whether we understand it. In Dhaka, what we see, it's more of a development problem, and we talk about climate change. In Ukraine, we're talking about war, but they do have development problems. They are impacted by climate change. And our everyday life is not separated. You can't separate those problems. I can give you an example, but let me skip a bit. So first solution is to understand and recognize the context we live in. The second is, we can't just talk about Bangladesh. We can't talk about South Asia even, because that's not how it works. It's a global community. We can talk about river and how things are important to deal with India and Nepal and Pakistan and all that. But the decision that India, Pakistan, Nepal are making are also tied up with China, US, Japan, and all this. It's driven by the corporate agenda. We talked about it the entire day. So understand that we cannot talk about just one piece of thing and ignore and try to find a solution. Excuse me. But then again, we've heard of many solutions, and doesn't matter how the complexity, how big, how we are in big global complex context and so on, there are always solutions. Okay? And the solution lies with people. Before going to that fourth, when we talk about solution, I just wanted to mention that the World Water Day 2024 is around leveraging water for peace. And the global community, after all this, it's not just the conflict. Don't think of conflict as the big, like the war and conflict. Every day in Dhaka city or in villages where we live in, we do face social conflicts. Small scale, but we do face those. Let's recognize that, and we have seen that. And it gets bigger when there is other crisis coming in. Social, economic, political, environmental, all those problems, creates more complexity and the conflict gets bigger. And I think globally, therefore, people are trying to recognize that, is that we want peace, and water being probably the single most important element in the world for us to live can provide us a solution. Now, what is the solution? I know AI can be one of the solutions, policy can be, but I think Farapa used to tell me that culture eats policies for breakfast. It's the people's culture that matters. It's the people who matters. And I think Rokon Bhai earlier said that people are more reluctant to engage in water-related solution. Why is that? And solution lies there. It's not just awareness, it's conscientization of people about the need of water. If we could, I would have said, like, let's send some of the policymakers to the Horn of Africa or Sahel. Let's go and see what water means to them. Yeah, how water creates conflict every day. Let me just give you a stat here from the Sahel. Over the past 20 years, they've lost 40% of their water. Okay? And the other one, it says the women and children are 3 times more likely to die of diarrhea in Sahel rather than in conflict. They are facing more. So if those are the numbers that we look into, we understand the need of the water. So the solution in terms of that, and I would advocate for localization of water action. Now, what does localization mean? It's not about local people. Let's understand what localization means. Let's say if you are from Patuakhali and then you have this water body. It's not the people around it, but people who gets benefit from it every day. If you are having a lorry driver coming all the way from the north, going into that place, and even for 10 minutes, half an hour, they're using that water, that person is a beneficiary or stakeholder to that water system. Therefore, that person must be part of local solution. It's not just, don't dump everything on them. Yeah? That's one of the kind of, how do I say it, starting point of the solution, engaging people who are stakeholder. The second thing I would say is, and we talked about, I think it's more of a summary, understand the green and blue. Yeah? Green is the plantation, the plants, the greenery and everything, and blue is the water. How they interact with each other and how it impacts the climate system. Ran out. It's okay. I was born next to a river. I can speak very loudly. So how this impacts the whole climate system. সবসময় দেখবেন যে জাহাঙ্গীরনগরের টেম্পারেচার is always গরমের দিনে 1 থেকে 2 degree lower than Dhaka city, and we give that example because of the greenery, because of the water bodies and everything. Those we have practical solutions there. So how do we do that and let people manage that? Government policies won't do much good in many of the areas. I'm saying it because we've seen it. It doesn't work in that way because we don't have implementation or something else. How do we have people managing that? And third thing, again, I don't want to talk about decolonization. It will become too big. But how do we kind of think about a water-centric development approach? Not living on the water. Yeah, get a boat. It's not water-centric development approach. What I'm talking about, we talked about the Potuakhali incident this morning, right? We've built a power plant and the fishes are gone. Can we maybe have not built that power plant in that place at the first instance? Maybe there is a solution, and that will not happen unless people understand the need of the water body or the interaction, how their life interacts with the water body over there. And I thank you.
Thank you, Tanzir. Is this working? Okay. What I'm going to suggest is that we are running short of time. So you four have heard each other speak. What is the one question you would have to Rokon? And what is the one question you would have to Tanzir? And that way, ask each other one question. No. So if you heard about the 4 Rs, you heard about humanitarian conflict and peace, and of course, so what are the questions you would ask them?
If I knew that this type of strategy they are following, they had been more attentive.
Rokon, what would you ask Kamruddin or Awal?
To me.
I'd like to ask that Professor Khan. I'd like to ask. There are policies you have mentioned. There are constitution and other, and there are people who are suffering or struggling for the water rights. So, is there any bridge or workable bridge, or is there any, I'd say, magic point, the only one which can work to bridge these two?
Do you know of a magic point that can bridge it? Eta apnar kache. What will you ask Kamruddin?
AI is a fascinating thing, isn't it? It's like one of those God's eyes. Question. Do you think having all those early warnings and everything from the AI would help people to act? Will people be understanding it?
Ekhon apnar proshno ready? You are the first one. Kake jigesh korben?
So at the beginning of your slide, I could see that you are trying to say that we need to access to our rivers smoothly, something like that you mentioned. Then what do you say that we have, how many rivers we have? Around 200 plus rivers in Bangladesh. 2000.
So what's the question?
Yeah, my question is that river is, as you know, this is considered as a living being, and what sort of issues you see to our rivers? Basically, those rivers are not so big that we need to address now for the sake of our survival.
What do we need to address?
Should I answer now? We should address now that river should go and meet the sea. That's-
And what's your answer to his question?
Magic point. Magic point is like I would see that public awareness, strong public awareness.
Mobilization.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks so much for your question. I never believed only AI or computer will solve the world. AI and computers, they work for humanity, human being. So definitely it's the people who makes the difference. But you see, how many of you actually, I cannot ask? Okay, okay, quick answer. I nearly got drowned when I was swimming on the sea without what do you call it, the life jacket. So life jacket helped me. AI and computers, they are aid. They are just like life jackets. They are not the complete solutions. Thank you.
And do you have a question for them?
No, I don't have much question. I would say, would you really ignore technology and just work on human being?
That's very interesting, and I know this is just the beginning of a conversation, and we need to have more discussions. So I thank all my panelists for being here. I don't mean to be rude, but we have young girls and boys waiting to perform, so I need to wrap this up. Tomorrow we have the second day. Please stay with us, connect, come here or connect online, and I'm sure it'll be very exciting. And I want to give a huge applause to the audience who have been with us since morning. Please, thank you, thank you, thank you.